What is going on? We have a fantastic panel today. OG55 Live. We got the one and only Slimer joining us today. We got George the Italiano. We're taking all your questions. And from the chat, looks like we got quite a few already, which is fantastic. Up next on OG55 Live. Let's rock and roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to all who come to this happy place,
welcome to Orange Grove 55.
Yes. Welcome to OG55 Live, where we're taking your questions on this Ask Us Anything. This is a live show. So I am joined today by the Italiano and Slimer. We're taking all your questions. Before we dive into your questions, I want to introduce my fantastic panel. The Italiano, welcome back, sir. It's always good to see you.
Thanks for having me on again. It's I always say this time and time again. It's always a good time coming on, being on the show, talking with you fellas, shooting the shit, all the regular stuff. That's how we do it. This is how we do it.
See, hey, we were on the Bad Thoughts podcast last night. We got a question if you could sing. I told you he could sing. This man can sing.
Well, thank you so much, brother. But if you would like to find me on social media, you could do so on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all the sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Perfect. There we go. We're doing it Five Fire style, Mondo style, right?
Shout out to Mondo and Danny.
Hell yeah, love those guys. Slimer, welcome back on the show, brother. It's always good to have you. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Hey friends, if you guys want to find me on social media, I'm at SlimeSquare84 on Twitter.
There we go. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. Check him out. A fantastic follow, especially if you're into Ghostbusters. Slimer is your guy. Absolutely, Slimer's your guy. And before we dive in, I got to drop,
And all these dollars got commas that come with commas behind them. And all my slammers be slamming. And all my slammers be slamming. And all my slammers be slamming. And all my slammers be slamming.
There we go. Legendary drop. Love it.
Absolutely.
All right, we got Mr. First question of the day. Mr. T.S. Wade 2. Once Upon a Studio made it to the shortlist for an Oscar for Best Animated Short Film. Is it possible that Once Upon a Studio might get nominated and win an Oscar for Best Animated Short Film? Absolutely. Well, first of all, it got nominated. So that's the first step. And I thought it was fantastic. I love that short. I thought it was a beautiful homage to the studio and Disney animation in general. It was handled very well. It absolutely has a good shot at it. What do you think, Slimer? Did you see the short? Where do you kind of stand with this? Does that have a shot?
Yep, I did. I did see the short. The thing about the short animated films is there's always a lot of strong competition in that category. Do I think that it has is it good enough to actually win that category? I personally don't think so. I really enjoyed it though. It was really touching. I hope that it wins, but again, that's a really competitive arena. I mean, a lot of breakthrough artists are really gunning for that, and I think they got that accidentally. I don't think they were gunning for some sort of performative, acknowledgement. But there are artists out there that are, because they want to make a name for themselves, and they're smaller and they have to, become more known. But I liked it. I don't think it's going to win though, but maybe it will.
Interesting. The Italiano, what are your thoughts? Once Upon a Studio, does it have a shot at winning this Oscar?
Well, first off, I have to say I absolutely adored the short. I love all the character interactions with one another. I thought that it was done very well, very tastefully done. The tribute to Walt Disney himself, that one-on-one with Walt's photograph hanging on the wall and Mickey just kind of having that just one-on-one moment like that to me was like the heart and soul of the whole entire short. I'm kind of with Slimer. I feel like thinking of the perspective of the Academy, will they see it as the top notch to win the Oscar? I don't really know. Me personally, I would want it to win because I
Right.
think it is very well deserved, because I was kind of listening to the story of how the idea came upon for Once Upon a Studio. It was two Disney animators. It was around the time of the Pandy, and they basically were throwing off this idea, which essentially became Once Upon a Studio, in their cars, because they were, the distance apart and what have you. So they were in a parking lot. One was in one car, one was in the other. They were having lunch at a fast food restaurant, and they were just kind of bouncing. They had their windows down, basically bouncing off ideas. And then they went home. I guess they have their own little studios there. They were animating and kind of coming up with this story. They phoned into I always forget her name. I do apologize. The head of the animation studio,
Jennifer Lee.
Yeah,
Jennifer.
yeah.
Jennifer. Yeah, they kind of pitched it to her. She enjoyed it, liked it. No, I don't even really think it was the intention for it to be for the Disney 100, because I don't think they actually mentioned it, but I think they just kind of held it there, and because it was what the representation of what that short was all about. They said, let's kind of let this be the kind of the header for the Disney 100 as far as like for a Disney short. So I personally would want it to win. But just like kind of honing in onto the Academy and how they kind of perceive of who would win the award, I'm not 100% sure on that. And then of course I would either want Wish or the new Hayao Miyazaki movie to win Best Animated Feature Film, and I hope Migration gets nominated for a Razzie.
So funny. So funny. Yeah, I think you guys bring up an interesting point, because with a lot of these animated shorts, I don't know what's nominated, but typically they're a little artsier than say the Best Animated Feature category. So when you're dealing with artsier material, the Academy is probably going to lean towards some of that stuff. So that's a fantastic point. Absolutely. CSRS here says, do you think NBC Universal will make a counter bid for WB? And if Universal gets WB, what options does Paramount have from there for a merger? Okay, so CSRS is a fascinating question. As we know, it's been confirmed now that Warner Brothers and Paramount had a preliminary meeting for a merger. This is interesting. Now, what I'm hearing, I think it was Lucas Shaw. I could be wrong on that. But it was, I believe it was Lucas Shaw, was saying that, and correct me wrong in the chat, if Ali is here, please correct me if I'm wrong. But there's murmurs in Hollywood that the reason why Zaslav is actually trying to get Paramount is because he's worried of Universal coming in and trying to make a move for Warner Brothers. The reason why he's worried about that is he thinks that if Comcast were to make a move for Warner Brothers, his job is not secure. Whereas if he can buy Paramount, he can stave off Comcast, and for whatever reason, he feels like he would still be running the show with that merger. So this is kind of a defensive move of this insider by Zaslav to fend off Comcast. Right, because obviously, if Zazie is successful in acquiring or merging with Paramount, the company's too big. Obviously, Comcast can't make that move anymore. So this is kind of like a situation like that. Now, that's just what they're hearing. Interesting idea, though. Now, in terms of Universal, if Universal gets WB, what options does Paramount have from there for a merger? Well,
does that also hinder even like what Universal is doing for that smaller park in Texas? Because if they were to use SpongeBob,
right,
with the rights of Paramount, that if Universal just to say tried to make a bid, but it wouldn't, like as far as like with WB and stuff, like does that hinder where Universal would have to make changes, or do they have a separate agreement for that?
Well, no matter what, I mean, unless Universal buys Paramount, then that would change it for sure, because then they would own that character. But no matter what, they're going to have to license that thing out. So whether they're writing the check to WB or whether they're writing the check to Paramount
themselves,
it's still the same equation for them. But if they were to make a move, if they were to forget about WB and just make a move on Paramount, and they are successful at that would change the equation for SpongeBob. But what do you think about this, Slimer? This whole idea of like, Paramount Universal, WB, crazy stuff that came out of Hollywood yesterday.
Yeah, so I can see the mutual benefit with Warner Brothers merging with Paramount. They're both struggling studios right now. They're struggling in the streaming services. They're struggling at the box office, so they can definitely benefit each other by beefing up their streaming service by combining them into one and putting all their titles into one. I don't see what the mutual benefit would be for NBCU capturing Warner Brothers, though. AT&T captured Warner Brothers. They sold them off in 3 years. They just seem like they're more trouble than they're worth. I don't see how NBC is going to be able to capitalize any of the titles that they own in the parks other than Wizarding World or Harry Potter. They're already paying a license for that, so I don't think that the license would really change. I don't think any sort of an acquisition by Paramount would affect Wizarding World in the parks. I think they'd be able to negotiate that away from Warner Brothers. Plus, Warner Brothers right now is in a period where they really can't they can't withhold anything right now. I mean, you saw they're right now in the process of licensing out all the DC movies to Netflix because there's money in those movies right now with Zack Snyder releasing his movie Rebel Moon. So Warner Brothers is in the business of licensing out their content right now because they don't have a streaming service. I think they plan on using Paramount Plus's platform as a streaming service, and I think that's the leverage they're looking at. I do agree with you that that Zaslav does want to remain CEO of the company. I don't think that he wants to leave. If anything, he probably envisions this as being his last stop before he enters retirement. So that merger with Paramount is going to be great for him. Whereas if NBC acquires them, they're going to tell him to pack up and clear out his office within the next 6 months from the acquisition. But I'll pass it on to you, George. My final statement is I don't think NBC has an interest in them. I think that they're trying to lean up, and this would be counter to that.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, Slimer. I feel like with WB and Paramount, kind of like these two struggling wheels off the bus kind of studios, like really like trying to catch up with these bigger studios. I feel like it would benefit both studios to kind of have that merger. I feel like that. I don't know if NBCU would want to kind of get into that. The only notion I would have that if they would attempt to is because, and OG, you touched upon this how many times on the show, is Universal has an issue because they always have to get other companies to get stuff into the parks. They have nothing owned of their own. Not
much, at least,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's basically, a handful of stuff, and it's really how much can it be used. So with Warner Brother and Paramount, and then Disney and Fox and what have you, it's like then there's Universal, and they just kind of have to utilize. So what all this kind of strikes me as with all of these studios, Disney, Fox, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Universal, all of that, it's like it's one big giant chessboard. Right. And each studio has their own set of pawns. So it's almost like they're trying to one up one another by kind of getting in bed with another studio to kind of, it's almost like a studio version of Big Brother, basically. Right. It's like you have to kind of create your alliance, right, in order to kind of come out on top at the end.
Well, I think Universal could benefit in a few ways from buying Warner Brothers. Number one, on the studio side, I think they would benefit greatly because they would basically have a competitive factor with DC that they can compete with Disney, with Marvel, right? So they would acquire DC, right? I think Warner Brothers has a great IP library. It's been mismanaged though for the last 20 years. Ever since AOL bought Warner Brothers back in like 2000, I think it was. They've had a string of like shitty management ever since, basically. But really, Warner Brothers has iconic IP. I mean, the Looney Tunes, all that stuff. I mean, they have Harry Potter, all that's great stuff. So I think that there is interest there, in my opinion, for Comcast to acquire that because they would inherit such a legendary library. The problem with the parks, though, is that a lot of the stuff that Universal would want to tap is already spoken for, right? So DC already has the licensing agreement, and I think Looney Tunes as well, with Six Flags. Mm-hmm. So does that, I mean, that doesn't necessarily change just because, you know, Comcast owns those IP now. So without being able to utilize those, how much use is the Warner Brothers stuff? Because they already have Harry Potter, so that's a wash. So that's the issue. Now, if they can get the theme park rights to DC, get the theme park rights to Looney Tunes, that's a game changer. Because with Looney Tunes especially, Universal has a demo problem with kids. I think that's partly why they're building that Universal Kids Park. But you get Looney Tunes, and now you have Looney Tunes, Minions. I mean, you know, the DreamWorks stuff. That's a pretty solid library that they would have. So we'll see, man. I mean, it's tough though. The other thing too is regulatory issues. I mean, are the government gonna let that happen? Comcast is massive, and to merge that with Warner, I just don't know. I really don't know. But CSRS here follows up with, on the flip side, if Paramount gets Warner Brothers, what options does Universal have to be acquired, since Peacock is not a top tier streaming options? Well, I don't think that Universal Comcast would be acquired. I think they would acquire, if that makes sense. I don't know who they would acquire, but I think they're looking to. I think they would look to buy. They're looking to buy, you know, not sell. In my opinion, now there are rumors, and I don't think there's much validity to this, but there are rumors that Comcast wants to spin off NBC Universal and sell that. I don't think that's the case though, because they're so bullish on the parks. And if they were to do that, it would complicate the IP usage in their parks. They would have to license out their stuff then, right? So we'll see. But what do you think, Slammer? I mean, do you think do you think Comcast Universal would be acquired, or would they acquire?
So I think the metric for how seriously they're taking their streaming service and how much they want to invest in a Peacock is really going to come to fruition on whether or not they decide that they want to try to acquire Warner Brothers from Paramount. If they go after Warner Brothers and they want to bring Warner Brothers into the Peacock app, then I think that at that point you can say, okay, Comcast sees a considerable amount of revenue or potential revenue in the next 10 to 20 years with a Peacock streaming service. They see this as they want to grow this part of their company. They want to expand the revenue opportunities with Peacock by bringing the Warner Brothers intellectual properties into the streaming service. If they go after Warner Brothers, if they don't, then I think that's going to be pretty indicative that Warner Brothers doesn't see, or NBC Universal, I'm sorry, does not see Peacock as a major revenue generator for the company, being that Comcast is so big. I think Universal Parks only account for like 6 to 8% of all of the entire gross revenue for the company of Comcast. Once you start factoring in, Comcast, Xfinity, all the internet service providers in the Northeast and the West. So I don't know, man. It might just be like a play toy for them, but we'll see. I think that if they go after Warner Brothers or not, I think that's when we'll know what they're thinking about with regard to Peacock.
Yeah, what was interesting too is Sherman from CNBC. He was really talking up this idea that, when that news dropped about, Paramount and Warner, he was out there on Twitter talking about, well, don't forget Comcast, don't forget Universal. Now, I know he's just a commentator on CNBC, but he's gained a lot of notoriety over the past, I would say, 6 months or so for a lot of his Iger articles and stuff like that. Remember the kind of the hit piece about Iger taking multiple showers, things like that. Mm-hmm. I think he's more in the room than people think he is. And I think the fact that he was out there, just like, don't forget Comcast, kind of like was maybe hinting that maybe they're interested, but who knows, man? It's crazy. And this whole consolidation game right now is wild. It's absolutely wild that this is all happening. Now, here's the other thing too. If Warner Brothers does get Paramount, that spells a lot of trouble, in my opinion, for Peacock, just because now they're going to combine their streaming services. You got them, that's a mega streamer, right? You got Disney Plus and Hulu, and you got Netflix. Well, Peacock is nothing compared to these giants over there. So that would be a problem, I think, for Peacock. And I think actually Peacock recently just ended. It's not offered in the UK anymore, if I'm not mistaken. I'll link it down below after the show. But I think coming next year, it's not going to be offered in the UK. So it seems like It's struggling a little bit. So I don't know. We'll see. But CSRS here asks, what lands and IPs at Disney parks could use those black box ride patents aside from Marvel? And would the black box rides be best suited for parks like DCA and DHS? Now, for those of you at home that are not aware, the black box is an attraction that could be swapped out. So probably a lot of like screen-based stuff. So maybe for a year, it's a Captain Marvel ride. Maybe when the Loki show comes out, they can flip it and turn it into a Loki ride. When that show ends and and the new Star Wars show comes out, like Skeleton Crew, they can flip it and do that. So I'll take it to you, Slimer. What are your thoughts on that? On this black box kind of concept, aside from Marvel, what do you think it would work for?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Any IP that is continuously ongoing and that has like a 10-year lifespan or shelf life more than 20 years, really. I mean, right now you have, let's see, you have Marvel. That's a good question, right? I mean, well, let's say this. Let's say Universal Studios was to acquire, or let's say NBC Universal rather, was to acquire Paramount, and they got the license for Star Trek. Star Trek would be a great IP to be utilizing the black box concept because there's so many Star Trek shows that are out right now, right? So, I mean, you have Prodigy, you have Strange New Worlds, you have Discovery Season 5, you have the original series, the Next Generation, right? So there's a lot of Star Trek going around. I think that'd be a really good one to put in there. With regard to Disney, I like off the top of my head, I really don't know any. It might be more applicable to Universal IPs, really, if I had to guess. But maybe the Fast and the Furious movies. I don't know. What do you think, George?
What are your thoughts on this?
So for me, call me old school, and I know as technology progresses and things like because a lot of people, I do apologize, there's the hype train, that a lot of people are in like that fast paced mode where it's like they don't really take the time to really kind of like focus on things as much, so it's like it's very quick. So that's where I feel like these black box kind of ride patents or experiences would be utilized, because it's like, okay, whatever is up with the times, we could just throw it in there, and then once it falls off the cliff, take it out, put the new fat in. I'm a type of person that I love to see the immersiveness where I don't have to actually go into a building and say, hey, this is only here temporarily. It could be changed like that. I like to actually feel like when I'm going to these places, I want to see actual physical sets. I want to feel like this thing is here permanently, in a sense, until they decide to update it. But in that moment, you feel like, okay, this is like, it's live, it's real, it's right in front of me. However, I do know that, and this is just speculation on my part of hearing things, but there are some behind the scenes of Avatar: The Way of Water that's on Disney Plus. There's different little segments where they go behind the scenes with the visual effects, the sound effects, the filming, the actors, what have you. And there was a brief moment where during the interview with James Cameron, he said something that actually caught my attention, and he said it really fast, and he said, I love these kind of black box type of, and I forget the other term he used, these black box type of projects or something of that nature, where he has full control on what to put in, what to take out, and what have you. So that kind of tied back into when they said the Avatar experience, that could this potentially be something for Avatar that could be put into DCA? Because if that is the case, I mean, I'm really not a huge fan of it. I would actually love to see a physical set, just like how it is in Animal Kingdom. But if they were to utilize that as the experience for Avatar, that would kind of make sense to put it in DCA for Hollywoodland, because then that's something that is utilized in cinema.
Right, 100%. Yeah, I also prefer an actual land than something like that for Avatar. And I think Cameron, I mean, unless this black box thing is like has a bunch of like cutting edge tech on it, I just don't think he'd be on board with that. But you never know. Never know. So
I gave it a little bit more thought, and CSRS, I actually have a really good question to what I think the black boxes would be well applied towards, and that would be like the original concept of Tomorrowland, where the land changes as technology changes with the time. So if you wanted to incorporate it and make it useful, I think that the Imagineers back in the day, as they were creating Tomorrowland and Future World for that matter, I think the black box idea, they would have really enjoyed something like that, because it would have been so much easier to just update the parks as the technology improved, because it seems like every time they put out something, it was already obsolete by the time that attraction already opened. Take Test Track, for example, or World of Motion. I think, well, World of Motion, that's kind of obvious, but that's what I would have. That's how I would implement it. I would implement it in the Tomorrowlands, and had they kept Future World, I would have implemented it that way. But
that's a great concept, Slimer. Because Tomorrowland is ever changing. So you implement this black box technology in Tomorrowland. It's an ever changing attraction in an ever changing land. It just makes a lot of sense. Makes a whole lot of sense. That's brilliant. Absolutely. CSRS says here, what behind the scenes issues do you think are holding up the Avengers E-ticket? Is it possible there is no direction for an Avengers E-ticket? Okay, so here's my thing with this. And I think it's also a Florida thing, okay? There's two big things I think that are holding up any kind of official concrete announcements for the U.S. parks. Florida, I think there's a lot of uncertainty politically. You have an openly hostile government with DeSantis, and all that stuff is being, fought in the courts right now with no clear outcome yet. So I think Disney's sort of like in wait and see mode with Florida, right? Let's see how the district is when the dust settles, and we kind of go from there, right? With Disneyland, well, we're going to get the Disneyland Forward vote, I think, in the spring sometime, like February or March. So I think when it comes to this Avengers E-ticket, I think what they're doing is they're waiting to see how Disneyland Forward gets voted on. Because when you look at the chessboard and the land available, it might change the way you move forward, right? Because right now, Marvel, to be quite honest, isn't super hot. Okay, it's not the hottest thing right now, but Avatar kind of is. Okay,
it basically became your second cousin twice removed.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it's Avatar is really hot right now, right? So maybe Disney's looking at that going, okay, well, let's see here. For Avatar, we need more space, but for more space, we need Disneyland Forward, right? So let's wait and see. If Disneyland Forward gets approved, maybe we'll fast track the Avatar stuff, and we'll put the Avengers thing on the back burner. Now, if Disneyland Forward doesn't get approved, okay, well, we already have the area behind Mission Breakout. We can start that then. We don't need Disneyland Forward to do that. So I think those are the two things kind of like right now sort of preventing, the domestic parks from sort of making
That's interesting because both projects are set for DCA.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's also,
because that way it can kind of like decipher like which route to go with DCA if Disneyland gets approved or not.
Right. If the Forward thing gets approved, then they know what they're working with. And that's smart, because you want to know what you're working with before you make any decisions. Because if Disneyland Forward gets approved, you don't want to go cutting into Hollywood Land if you don't have to, or things like that, right? So you want to know what you have available before you really make these decisions. So I think they're kind of waiting. Now, I think there are plans, CSRS, behind the scenes and all that for whatever they want to do. I just think they haven't committed fully yet until they get that approved. But what do you think, George?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think there's a lot of pushback from the Avengers E-ticket. I think honestly too, what plays in a factor is just not knowing like which route Marvel is going to go. I think they're kind of even waiting in the wings as far as like the studio side goes, because I mean the Marvels didn't do so hot at the box office, not really knowing what the next big hitter is for the film. So I don't know if it's kind of like on the creative side that maybe they could even be waiting to see the type of storyline, because that's what it seems like it's going by. We keep on getting these like small little nuggets of information off this Avengers E-ticket, but it's more so about like the technology. It's more so about the ride vehicle. It has really nothing more to do with the story. And we got a brief little notion of it at the expo where they mention about the Avengers going against King Thanos, but it just kind of like it was left there at the doorstop, right. So nothing really more. So I don't know if they're kind of waiting and see how much relevance that storyline can hold up, or if they decide to change direction again. I think but I think that also plays into factor as well as much as what you had mentioned about if and when Disneyland Forward gets the green light of which direction are they going to go for. Are they going to go for Avatar first, or are they going to go for the Avengers E-ticket?
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on that, Slimer? What's holding this thing up? Well, why are they not making moves yet on this thing?
Yeah, I don't think Disney's really confident with the Marvel brand right now. They had nothing but Marvel bombs last year, minus Guardians of the Galaxy. They lost their main antagonist just this week. They don't have any. There's no clear path that the fans see as to what direction the Marvel universe is going. Loki was kind of popular, but it didn't have the same amount of chatter the same way the first season did. Then next year, all you have coming out is Echo, Agatha. Who cares? And then you have Deadpool 3, and like that's it. And so, okay, I'm assuming we're going to get some trailers for what's going to be coming out in 2025. But like they really only have one shot to make up for the lackluster year that they had this year before it's time to reboot the entire franchise completely. And so that's why I think that they're really treading carefully as to any sort of a Marvel announcement or any sort of CapEx commitment to that land, because I just don't think that the brand has a pulse. I don't think it's going to draw people in the same way that Guardians of the Galaxy did when they opened up that attraction. And so I think they're doing the best thing, which is to just be really conservative right now with the brand. Wait until they make an announcement that sticks, gets people excited. And as soon as that announcement happens, jump on it. And at this point, it has to be Doctor Doom, I think, either that or Galactus.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then I think the actor that's associated with that role is going to be really important. So the selection process of the actors moving forward, the new characters moving into the universe, go ahead and the fans have been saying, hey, give us X-Men for the longest time. So Marvel has the fans have to see that Marvel and Disney are going to give them what they've been asking for, because if they've been asking for X-Men and they've been asking for Doctor Doom, but then, Marvel continues to say, no, have Echo and Agatha instead, because we've already made these, right? And this is what you're going to get until 2026. Nobody's going to come to see any sort of Marvel attraction. I don't care what it is. I mean, even if they drop the Thanos ride, we're already 5 years removed from the last Infinity
See,
War
that's
movie.
what I was saying. That's what I was saying. How much of a relevance is this to you're giving us a character, a villain, which, yeah, I get it. There are villains that are timeless. You could take the Disney villains, they constantly use them even after the fact, the movie. But I think Marvel is on a little bit of a different type of wavelength than the Disney villain. So when you kind of want to move forward, you're thinking, okay, who's going to be the new threat? And that's what I even mean by the black box type of experience. People just want the new up-to-date thing. So it's like that's where it's, as you had mentioned, Slimer, you mentioned Doctor Doom, you mentioned Galactus. It's like those could be the new threats. Are people really going to care about Thanos? And I feel like that when they do decide who the new threat's going to be, they have to stretch that character out a little bit more, because I feel like that's what they kind of did wrong with Thanos, in my opinion. I feel like they kind of killed him off just a little bit too soon. Not necessarily with the same Avengers with Iron Man, but they should have at least stretched his character as a villain to even move forward, just to kind of give him some leg life.
You're absolutely right, and that really plays into the strengths of the Spider-Man ride over at Islands of Adventure, because Spider-Man is fighting not just one villain; he's fighting the entire Sinister Six. The villains in that ride never get old and outdated, because you have 6 villains. The Sinister Six have been around forever, and he interacts with each villain individually before he fights them all in a culmination battle at the very end. So if they were smart, they would utilize more than just one villain. They would have all the villains, or have, the more popular villains as the antagonists that you're fighting in that ride. So yeah, I think you're right. I think Thanos, he's not going to be who's a more memorable ride villain? Biff Tannen from the Back to the Future, the ride. Yeah. He's a more memorable villain, and I would say just in cinema in general. I mean, when you think about like one of the worst bad guys in the 1980s, he's almost right up there with Darth Vader. Thanos is not going to be remembered the same way that Biff Tannen is going to be remembered, or the same way that a lot of 80s villains were going to be remembered. And I just think that's just due to the fact of like the bandwidth of information now versus the 1980s and the 1990s. And that does play into ride longevity too, and where they're going with this whole villain selection.
Now, Slimer, can I ask you a quick question? Because you had mentioned something about when you mentioned about Guardians with Mission Breakout, that people were kind of on that hype train after the fact that they calmed down, that after Tower of Terror was becoming that. Now, well, first off, I just have to say the Agatha comment, that show went through so many titles. I think you came up with the greatest one, Agatha. Who cares? That's the perfect title for it. But do you feel like that for? Okay, I'm going to try to clean up my words here. So obviously, the Marvel superhero optional, because it was more so based off of the comic book style, where the comic books I feel like have a little bit more of a longevity than the films, because as films progress, actors get older, they move on to different roles, what have you. So, and if what we're seeing now with Marvel, do you think it would have been more benefit to just kind of have single individual attractions from Marvel, just kind of like leave Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout just as that attraction rather than have the Avengers campus?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, I think that's the right move, because the Avengers aren't always, like, if you read comic books, the Avengers aren't always the more popular comic book. It depends on what comic book series is happening. When they were doing X-Men House of M, there was nothing bigger in the comic book world than there was the House of M series. But then when they did the Civil War series, that was bigger. Whenever they did Crisis on Infinite Earths in DC, that was the biggest story happening, right? So the problem with dedicating your entire land to just, the Avengers group is like, well, the Avengers might not be relevant for 10 freaking years. I mean, there are periods of time where Superman wasn't relevant. I mean, there was the 1980s and the 1990s was some of the worst years for DC Comics outside of Batman, and the only reason the Batman was still popular is because you had some of the greater writers tackling Batman. You also had Frank Miller coming out and doing his Batman series. I mean, he wrote mainly novels, but they were hanging on to thread. Meanwhile, X-Men was crushing everybody. Fantastic Four comic books were really popular too in the 1960s. But Fantastic Four, there's another one, man. I mean, Fantastic Four has long spurts of unpopularity and then popularity. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They need to make the land all encompassing of all the Marvel characters, because you don't know what's going to happen with your universe. I mean, look what's happening right now. You know what I mean?
Well, and Universal's credit, when they did their superhero thing over at Island of Adventure, it was Superhero Island, all encompassing, right? Mm-hmm. This Avengers campus is a great point, you guys. Avengers campus is very narrow. It's this group, and that's it. They would have been better calling it like the Superhero Campus or Marvel Land or whatever, where you can have everything. And I think that would have been much better, because you're right. In 10, 15 years, are the Avengers going to be relevant? I mean, right now,
I don't even think they're relevant right now, honestly.
That's what I'm saying, So it's tough. It's really tough. Yeah. They're not as timeless as I think that Disney was kind of banking on, So that's fascinating.
Absolutely.
CSRS here says, do you think most of Hollywood studios' future lands will be cloned to DCA for their Disneyland forward plot? I don't think DCA is going to get cloned Hollywood studio stuff. I think we saw Ken Potrock, president of Disneyland, over in Asia recently, looking at Zootopia, looking at Arendelle, looking at all these. I think that's the direction they're going in. I think they're looking at like either Frozen or Zootopia. I think Go ahead, Jordan. I'm sorry.
No. I'm trying to. So wait, when he says Hollywood Studios' future lands will be cloned to DC.
What future lands are in the book on the book?
Right. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is he CSRS? Maybe you can kind of clarify that. Do you mean lands down the road for Disney's Hollywood Studios would eventually go to DCA, or are you referring to that whatever is decided upon for DCA with Disneyland Forward that would become Hollywood Studios? I think maybe that's what he was trying to say.
I think so, but then he adds in at the end for their Disneyland Forward plot. So I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, I'm not really sure. Yeah, I'm a little confused too, CSRS. But no, I don't think they're going to clone stuff for Hollywood here. I think they're looking more probably cloning the Asian stuff for here, because we saw the evidence of that with
Yeah.
Potrock over there in Shanghai and Hong Kong and all that.
I agree.
But yeah, we'll see. But that's interesting. That's very, very interesting. Like I said before, I think what we need is Utopia out here in Anaheim. I would just do a Los Angeles version of that land. You can do the Walt Disney Concert Hall in the animal style. You can do these LA landmarks in that Zootopia style, and that's the tie-in to Los Angeles and California. I think it's pretty easy to do that. That's what I would do. But we'll see. What are your thoughts on this, Slimer? I know. I mean, do you think that they're gonna clone these things and put them into DCA or vice versa? Where do you stand with this, brother?
I hope not. And, and to feed into his next question here, do I think that the new Mermaid show at Hollywood Studios prevents them? Because these questions are actually heavily related. Revamping animation courtyard. Look,
I touched upon this yesterday, but I want to get your thoughts, Slimer, because you're also done there too.
Yeah. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, these shows come and go, and this makeovers, the cost to make over the Little Mermaid show is probably pennies compared to what it would take to, put in an actual, like C-ticket or D-ticket or even an E-ticket attraction in that area. I'm not totally against Animation Courtyard staying Animation Courtyard. As a matter of fact, I quite enjoyed I quite enjoyed what was it called? The Art of Animation, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think that with Hollywood Studios, you have to be careful with how many e-ticket attractions you put in there, because there's already a superfluous amount of e-ticket attractions. I mean, the entire park is almost e-ticket attractions, right? And then it being based off of acting in Hollywood, you don't have a lot of live performances. It does lack live performances given the name that is called Hollywood Studios. I like the idea of having lands based off of, Lucasfilm and Marvel and the very popular titles with the different studios. But I also think that live performances also have to have a heavy presence there.
Right.
And if they just introduce another e-ticket attraction, then I think you're getting away from what the spirit of Hollywood Studios is. And I don't mean like the original intent, because the original intent was for it to be a studio location, right? So I'm not talking about that, but there still needs to be a healthy amount of live performances, being that it's Hollywood Studios. If anything, I would like to see more live performances to be done there. Maybe if they turn it into like a live performance courtyard. I know that's not very, very popular, but to some people it really is. I mean, I'm not one that actually goes to the park for I've never seen the Lion King over at Animal Kingdom, for example. I just don't go out of my way for the live performances. But Hollywood Studios, I don't think they need another e-ticket attraction, is what I'm saying.
That's an interesting kind of way to look at it, because I think Hollywood Studios right now is kind of on an identity crisis right now, because no one really knows like what really kind of park is it? Is it a studio? Is it? And you're right, it does have a lot more for the thrill seekers, and I feel like that's what kind of encompasses all the guests to go there out of all the four parks. Like when you constantly look at Hollywood Studios, the wait times for the rides are like astronomical. Like I've even seen Slinky Dog at 180 minutes at one point, and and I do agree with you. I miss the Art of Disney animation. That was the whole point of why they even had Animation Courtyard. Mulan, majority of Mulan was produced there. Which I thought was phenomenal. And it's a shame.
It is a shame, but you know what they could do if they're tight on budget, or they don't want to do too much heavy lifting right now in this area, but they want to respect the animation theme. I mentioned this in a recent video. The Star Wars launch bay just feature the Lucasfilm animated shows. So you just you feature Clone Wars, you feature Rebels, Resistance, Bad Batch, and then you're respecting the animation, but you're not drifting too far out from the Star Wars thing. I think that might work,
Absolutely.
So there's ways they can kind of work around this a little bit.
And before we move on to another question, I do want to ask you fellas, with the case of Rock and Roller Coaster, because now this is going to be another down refurb for Rock and Roller Coaster in a short amount of time. So they just seem like, is it more so maintenance because this thing is constantly because of the high demand and everything, and type of like with the hydraulics and the catapult and what have you, it just takes a toll on the attraction itself? Or are they starting to slowly kind of like wean it off so they can eventually revamp this and reskin this to something else? Because I mean, the contract with Aerosmith, I believe, is almost up soon, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know if they're going to end up they're going to reevaluate that. So, I mean, I think everyone knows what I would reskin it to. I mean, it's pretty much a given factor. But
a Goofy movie.
Yeah.
but here's the thing. I kind of feel like the whole Rock and Roller Coaster thing is a fool me once, fool me twice kind of thing. How many times has this thing gone down? And how many videos have we even made speculating? Oh, it's down for a few months. What could it be? Are they going to retheme it? Are they not? And I kind of feel at this point it's like every single time it's never the case.
So do you think it's more so operational issues?
It could be. I'm not really sure. But now watch, because I said that, now they'll answer everything. Of course, But it's like, I don't know. I mean, for me personally, I think that if I was running the show, I would definitely retheme it to something. I would put a Disney IP in there. And they could still have rock. Let's say they want rock or music related. You can do a Muppet. Was that Electric Mayhem or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that.
That would be awesome.
That'd be great. You can do your idea, George, like a Goofy movie. There's franchises, Disney franchises you can do that would work in there, and it's your own property. And I think it would. I don't know. I think it would work almost even better than what's currently there. I mean, Aerosmith is like. I mean, obviously they're a legendary band, but I mean, how relevant are they to youngsters today, right? Like, are Gen Z, are they bumping Aerosmith nowadays? I don't
I think it's more so these young kids are going on the ride just for the thrill factor. I don't think they really care about who the rock band is.
No, they don't. But if you have the IP that they do care about,
oh, absolutely,
then that sells the merch. Right.
And that's why I think Aerosmith isn't as relevant, because that's what a lot of people surmise. Like, they look at the line, the wait time for Rock and Roller Coaster. It's like, oh yeah, Aerosmith is like still relevant. Look at the wait time for it. Right. It's like, well, they're not necessarily in line for Aerosmith.
Right. And this kind of goes to your black box theory, George, right? Like the swappability for some of these IPs in the black box. What if they created that kind of concept for Rock and Roller Coaster where you swap out bands? So maybe hey, look, if they had that concept in 2019 when they had that new High School Musical show on Disney Plus, you could have had it for a year. You could have had High School Musical in that, swap it out for that. Maybe after that, hey, look, they have a BTS thing on Disney Plus. Maybe K-pop is big. Maybe you do a BTS thing for a year. Maybe you swap that out. You do a Goofy movie for a year. You can swap these things out and basically make it an attraction where no one group lives there for too long.
That's where I feel
that's
like
a good idea.
That's where the black box would benefit an attraction, rather than it be just like encompassing for a whole land like Avatar. I feel like your idea, like with the Rock and Roller Coaster, when you have like these individual, like not really big IP set attractions that aren't really tied to a specific land, that would benefit with using the black box.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, because there's quite a few bands just off of the top of my head, and primarily in the rock and progressive rock genre, who identify their music as with some sort of visual component that marries the music. Like, let's say, Pink Floyd, for example, there's a very visual component to experiencing Pink Floyd. Especially, I mean, this if you've seen any one of their live shows. Their live shows are very heavy on lasers and lights and screen imagery behind them and colors, right? So if you were to, I mean, dude, a Pink Floyd roller coaster would be freaking sweet. Yeah. I mean, they're not just the only one. I mean, you can. That's a really good idea, OG. I think that I'm going to ponder on that one for a little bit, because they can change it 2-3 times a year if they wanted to.
Right. Exactly.
Depending on what's going on.
For like the seasons, like during the holidays, they could do like a holiday overlay. They could do Halloween. They could do Christmas. They could pretty much do anything, really.
Like Taylor Swift's really big right now. You know how many Swifties that would draw into the park?
Dude, if they retheme Rock and Roller Coaster for a year to Taylor Swift, it would crush, absolutely crush on the attendance, the merch. It would be insane, dude. Absolutely insane. So
I love maybe says, ooh, OG cooking. That's when he becomes our chef boy OG.
Chef boy OG. yeah. It's always good to see Maybe in the chat, by the way. Thanks for joining us, Maybe. But yeah, man, I think that would be an awesome kind of way to go about it. You keep the name though, Rock and Roller Coaster, and you just swap out the groups. You
Awesome.
know, that'd be great. That's a wrap. 818 here says part 1 of 1. As innovation keeps going, was thinking of how the theme park industry will go forward with the whole change of banks looking into CBDCs, digital cash like Apple Pay. Hold on, it's a two-parter actually. Wondering if Disney will be the first to implement a crypto token, stable digital Disney dollars, or their own on the app to purchase things. Disney. I have to defer this question to you, gentlemen. I know absolutely nothing about crypto or any of this Bitcoin stuff. I have no idea. No freaking idea. What about you, Slimer?
So, Mr. Seymour Duck, go ahead and make some time. Make yourself available for for a show this week. That's a good one for Mr. Seymour Duck, actually.
Yeah.
I think that you guys should throw him that question. He's not in the chat.
Right. So for me, this is just what I've heard, like in the news realm and everything. But a lot of with the Bitcoin, with the crypto, had actually cost people money. They lost big time. People lost thousands upon thousands of dollars. I'm not saying that is with everybody who used it. I don't know like the whole logistics of it. I'm just saying that's what I've heard. I think if Disney was to just kind of use maybe not like their own kind of crypto, Bitcoin thing, but if they just went sort of cashless, so to speak, I'm just saying, I mean, there's a possibility they may do that. I mean, I don't really use cash too much anyway. I usually either just use my Apple Watch or the tap on my phone or my debit card. I don't really pull cash out anymore, but I don't know. That's kind of interesting. I think I'd probably Seymour would have a more like in-depth. Like this is just like he's probably looking at us like right now like amateurs.
It's an interesting topic, and maybe we'll bring him on and we can kind of dive into that because I honestly know nothing about it. I'm not qualified to answer that question. So
and we get Ilya on it too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is a good one right here from Lord Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Lord Jonathan. Welcome to the House of Orange, Lord Jonathan. Question. Should Disney make Art of Disney Animation Courtyard area based on Broadway live entertainment area?
Oh, you know what, Lord Jonathan? I actually thought about that. Because I was curious enough because they have the Hyperion Theater over DCA, which was phenomenal. I will say Aladdin is still to this day the best Disney production in a theme park that they have ever done, completely hands down. I loved Frozen. Frozen was really good, but for me, nothing could beat Aladdin. And I feel like if they was to do something to that caliber, where if they were to literally take that whole area and just make one big gigantic, and this kind of ties into Slimer's theory, if they were to just make one big gigantic like Broadway style theater, then you can put in a big time Broadway show that would be the cost of a one-day ticket to Hollywood Studios, and maybe that can kind of set off a lot of the butt aches of people saying that these tickets are overly expensive.
I like that. Instead of butt hurt, butt aches. That was very creative, George. Very creative. What are your thoughts on this, Slimer?
I like that idea. I love it. They can turn it in. They can even turn it into like a Renaissance courtyard, and it features live performances based off of movies during the Renaissance period. They already have the Little Mermaid. All you'd have to do is throw in the Aladdin and another Renaissance movie, and there you go.
Absolutely.
Is it just me? But how come like all the big time animated films that were classics and like so successful that drove Disney animation to new heights with like Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and The Lion King, they have honestly nothing really to show for it in the parks? I am like still stunned.
It's all like they utilize them a lot in like the fireworks shows and things like that. But with the physical attractions, where's the Lion King attraction? That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be dope, man. I've been saying for a long time, Indiana Jones ride system. You're going through like the safari and you see Simba and Mufasa. It'd be amazing, absolutely amazing. But we don't have anything like that. Aladdin only has those stupid carpet spinners over there, right?
That thing is such a freaking eyesore, and it takes up so much room. Slimer, you know how that goes. It gets like so like welded in there,
and it's really squeaky too, man. If you're standing right next to you, here, go.
Oh,
You're just like,
jeez.
what is going on here?
That doesn't instill too much confidence, huh? You're like, ooh.
That and the Astro Orbiter over at Disneyland can both go in the trash.
And they put the Magic Carpets of Aladdin in 2001. It was around the time of the 100 Years of Magic. What an insult to Walt Disney's 100th birthday to say, yeah, let's put in a fucking Magic Carpet spinner ride right dead center in Adventureland where this camel fucking spits on you every 5 seconds.
Well, that was a dark time kind of for Disney in general and for the parks. That was DCA 1.0, which was really lackluster.
Yeah.
It was just Eisner was kind of going through it at that time, and he wasn't.
And
really
I
hitting home
apologize,
runs.
folks, for my language, but that ride really pisses me off.
No, you're good, brother. You're good. You're good. Laura Jonathan here continues with, could Hollywood Studios get a Mary Poppins show based on the Broadway musical since the ride was canceled for Epcot? Laura Jonathan, I would love that. I am a huge Mary Poppins fanboy. I absolutely love Mary Poppins. I even loved the sequel. I believe it or not. I didn't think I would. I love that movie, and the music was pretty good. That would be awesome. What are your thoughts on that, George? Mary Poppins Broadway show.
I absolutely loved the Mary Poppins Broadway show. It came to my city several times, and I think they need more Mary Poppins in there because that was titled as the crowning jewel, of Walt Disney's, triumph in cinema, and it's one of the greats, with Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke and what have you. What a great way to pay homage to it by incorporating it in the parks.
100%. What are your thoughts on that, Slimer? Mary Poppins Broadway show, Hollywood Studios.
Yeah, do it. That's a no-brainer.
You know what I'm saying? It works.
Yeah.
Absolutely works. BJ Vincent here says, what is your view on the alleged report by Braden of Mickey Views about a comment from a reliable source that Bob Iger made about Tiana's Bayou adventure being boring? Okay, here is the thing. Oh, actually, there's a part 2. Hold on. Before we go. At this time, while I like Mickey Views, I feel his commentary by an Imagineer is hearsay since I did not hear the comment firsthand. That's exactly what I said in a video the other day, BJ. I think actually it might have been released today, the video. But the problem is the quote was, "This is boring," from Bob Iger. And an Imagineer, I guess, said that to Braden, or it came from an Imagineer. I don't know what happened, right? But here's the thing. This is boring. There's no context. So does Bob Iger mean the entire ride, this is boring? Does Bob Iger mean this scene right here, that's boring? Without context, it means nothing, right? And even if he meant this scene or the whole thing is boring, well, that's why he took the tour. So he could provide feedback as to what's good and bad about this experience so they can make changes if necessary. We saw this on Disney Plus, on the Imagineering story. We saw Bob Iger standing over the Cars Land model, telling the Imagineers, this land is going to be too hot. You need to put more trees. This is what they do. This is why these executives walk through and check this stuff out so they can give feedback and improve the thing before it opens. So I don't know. I agree with you, BJ. It seems like hearsay to me. There's zero context at all with that comment. We don't know. Even if, look, it's like the game of telephone as well. By the time it gets to Braden, is it the same quote even? Who knows? So that's where I'm at. What do you think, Slimer? I don't know if did you see that video from Mickey Views about how he heard from an Imagineer, I guess, that Bob Iger said, this is boring. What are your thoughts on that, brother?
So there's a flaw in the logical structure that renders the entire statement invalid. So it goes something like this. This is boring, therefore the ride is boring. That doesn't follow. The premises don't follow the conclusion. So if he was saying that something specific is boring, okay, you still can't draw the conclusion that the ride is boring, because I can tell you that there's something boring in every single ride at every single theme park.
Right.
Okay. It's a completely invalid statement, and I've already forgotten about it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, George?
Yeah, I'm right there, and we had this discussion. Yeah, the video that dropped today, actually, it was. There's not so much really to go by than just that one little statement. That could pretty much be anything about anything at any given time. It could have been one little piece of specific show scene. It could have been about an audio animatronic. It could have been, hey, there's not enough lighting over here. This is boring. It's dull. You need more backdrop. It could have been anything. So to take Iger out of quote to not even know really what he was referring to, and then utilize that to say, okay, to label the whole entire ride is he stating it as boring is kind of not fair, really. To just kind of say that that's what it was, and until we actually, and I'm going to say this time and time, until we actually see this attraction in person, eye to eye. My goofy movie pun for the night. Until we actually experience it, we can't really give our critiques on it in the sense of knowing really what it's all about until we see it for ourselves. We can have an opinion on it, but
Right.
you can't just rubber stamp it and say this ride is trash because of this, this, and this. It's not even open yet. And when you kind of look at those photographs, they're not done. Anytime you watch anything in the behind the scenes, you can look at a movie being made and you can say, wow, that looks like total shit. Well, of course, the movie's not done yet.
Well, there's no show lighting in those pictures, and it still looks pretty good. And that's the thing that's amazing to me is like people were trying to shit on those pictures, like, oh, it looks just like the beginning of Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? That's one of the greatest attractions ever made, man. Like, I don't understand what the issue. Like, it's weird. It's really, really. I think it looks good, and that's without show lighting. And so imagine when you have the projections, the effects, the lights, everything. I mean, it's probably gonna look pretty sharp. So we'll see. But again, we don't know until we ride it. We don't know until it opens. Kiki and Luca here says, "What was the best and worst thing that happened at the parks in 2023? What are you looking forward to the most in 2024?" Okay, so we'll start with the worst. Let's get the negative out of the way. I think the worst thing that's actually happened at the parks didn't even happen at the parks. It happened on those convention stage with Tomorrow. When he went up there and he did a bunch of maybe, what if, could be, woulda, coulda, shoulda, whatever stuff. All that blue sky stuff, I think he did it twice too. He did it at D23 and at Destination D. I think it killed fan morale. I think it absolutely killed fan morale, especially because you have Universal that's out there building 15 new parks or whatever. Now the UK one, you got the Vegas thing, you got the Kid Park in Texas, you got Epic Universe, and then our guy, our Tomorrow comes out and it's like a bunch of what if, imagine the possibilities, take my hand and come on this journey with me. I think he absolutely destroyed fan morale when he did that. I think I think that was the worst thing. Twice. That's the worst thing I think that happened in 2023 for the parks, but it didn't even happen at the parks technically. But what are your thoughts, George? The worst thing in 2023 for the parks?
I definitely agree with you. I think that's like the top notch tier that could have brought the morale down for any hope of what's going in to the parks domestically, at least. But I would have to say, I personally was not there, and thank God for that. But just to kind of just throw it out there, but if I was at Disneyland and I was going to take myself on It's a Small World, I am going on to experience the song It's a Small World. I don't necessarily want to see something small in the world of a naked guy walking past me. And I mean, like, yeah. I mean, that blew my mind. Because unfortunately, when I clicked on the video to see it, it was the uncut version, which I didn't know was the uncut version. And I'm like, damn, I did not want to see that.
You basically saw the Snyder cut of the Small World incident. Huh? That sucks, man. That really sucks, dude. That really sucks.
But all I can say is it definitely was a small world after all.
Nice. What are your thoughts on the Slimer? The worst thing that happened at the parks, 2023.
All right, so I agree with you. I think that is the worst thing to happen at the parks, outside of the parks. If we're talking about inside the parks, dang, that's a really good one. I don't know. I don't know what the worst thing is. I mean, it can't be that bad. It's a Disney theme park. But the best thing, if it opened this year, I can't remember if it opened this year, was did Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind open in 2023 or was that 2022?
2023. Didn't it open in like August, I believe, or something? No, not August. I'm sorry.
Give me a minute.
Spring, I believe.
Yeah. So if that opened this year, that was the best thing to happen in the parks in 2023.
It was spring,
I think Cosmic Rewind opened in 2022.
Oh, okay.
because
Oh,
I think, don't quote me, because I think because I took Josh on it, and his last time was in 2022. But Tron opened in 2023.
2023.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say Tron or World of Showcase or Luminous. So pick one. Those
Okay.
those are my top three.
Okay.
My top would have to be, I think. Okay, so it's kind of like a little bit of a duel. Um, I think Toontown with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway at
There's a win.
Disneyland. I think honestly of how they revitalized that land, because I think we all were kind of in a moment of thinking Toontown was on the chopping block for sure.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
at some point. So the fact that they kind of revitalized that and gave it a pulse again, and adding Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway definitely brought more life to that land. And again, it kind of ties into with the Disney 100 Wondrous Journeys. I mean that
Oh,
fireworks
yeah.
show, that is like,
It's a banger.
talk about
as Callie would
talk
say.
about it, as Kaylee would say, it's a banger. And honestly, that truly was like a kiss goodnight for
Yeah.
the folks that were able to join in that moment for the Disney 100. And it is coming back. It is coming back for a short period of time, I believe,
This spring.
in springtime, I think.
Yeah. So my best thing, I have a couple best things. Wondrous Journeys is definitely on that list. You're absolutely right. That's a gorgeous, gorgeous show. If you haven't seen it, at least watch it on YouTube. It was funny, George, you were at the parks with VashSky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were there. I was at home.
Yeah.
And I watched it on YouTube. This is when it first premiered, right? I watched it on YouTube. I texted you immediately. What did I say? You guys have to go see this thing.
That was you said. You said you have to see this. You said I even got choked up with it. I'm thinking OG got choked up by watching a Disney fireworks show on YouTube, not actually physically being there. I'm like, oh man. Like,
dude, it's an incredible show, and I've seen it like 4 or 5 times now in person, and it has the same effect on me every single time. It's a gorgeous tribute to animation, and a huge shout out to Chris Lernertz, the songwriter for that. I mean, it's an amazing piece of art. So by far one of the best things in 2023. I think the number two, well, not number two, but another best thing that happened in 2023. I'm gonna go with Zootopia. I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing over there for that Shanghai. That new land in Shanghai. I think we need Zootopia here in California ASAP. I want it so bad. They have so many clever gags, like the giant benches that make you look really small. I think that's freaking hilarious. All the animatronics in the land that come out like with the various windows in the buildings. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing piece of work.
And the popsicles. How can you go wrong with the popsicles?
Come on. We need Zootopia. So yeah, Zootopia and Wondrous Journeys by far. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, now final part of this question is, what are you looking forward to the most at the parks in 2024? What I'm looking forward to the most is, number one, that Disneyland Forward vote. I know that's a nerd thing, right? I'm looking forward to a city council vote, but no, I really do want that to go through. I'm really excited for that to get approved, because that means a lot for the future of Disneyland Resort. So that's on my list for sure. I also am very curious, cautiously optimistic, what's announced at D23. Hopefully we get a little more detail on this Pandora thing or Avatar thing for Disneyland Resort. That's what I'm hoping for. So we'll see. Those are the two things. Hopefully Daddy Josh can come through this time. Come on, Josh.
I'm right there with you. I'm right with you, OG. Those are like the two big heavy hitters, I think, for me for 2024, because that basically kind of gives the notion of where the parks are going to be moving forward in the future. Number one, the vote in early 2024, get Disneyland Forward greenlit, and then later on in the summer, let's kind of utilize that time to showcase at the expo of what you're going to be doing, because it got granted with the Disneyland Forward. And tomorrow, yes, I'm speaking to you because I know you're watching. I'm telling you right now, and I'm trying for your best interest to not step out on that stage again for a third time and give us what ifs, maybes, buts, ands, ors, whatever. No, we want to hear and see some greenlit stuff. This is what's in the pipeline. This is what's going to go on. That's what we want as fans. We don't want this, we're going to all hold hands in a semicircle and sing Kumbaya. We don't want that. Give us what we want and we're all good. Thank you.
Exactly. Well said, George. Well said. Well said. Slimer.
Or else George is gonna come on stage and give you the Stone Cold Stunner.
Yeah, exactly. 100%, man.
My favorite wrestler, by the way. Honestly, I thought it was great. He actually gets that was my favorite wrestler, my favorite wrestling move. So that's perfect.
There you go. Slimer 2024, brother. What are you looking forward to?
So I'm really looking forward to Community Call being finished, and I'm looking forward to Tiana's Bayou Adventure. They're local to me, so that's why I mentioned them. I know there are bigger projects happening internationally, but being that I'm not going to Japan or anywhere else anytime soon,
Right.
Those are the ones that I'm looking forward to next year.
Makes sense. BJ Vincent here says, part 1 of 2 says, I know the debate on IP versus non-IP Disney rides, lands, and or new fifth gate has been going on for a while now, but do you actually think it would matter? Because no matter what Disney puts in there, if it's an excellent ride, resort or land IP or non-IP, people will go to it more than likely will enjoy it, like Disney Sea, Mystic Manor, etc. Yes. Look, here's the thing. In terms of the quality of an attraction or land, he's right. The IP doesn't really matter. You know, we've seen it over. I'm not a big Cars guy. I don't really love the movies. You know, I mean, they're cool, whatever. But I'm not like a huge car fan. You know, but the land is one of my favorite things at Disneyland Resort. Right, so it's almost like it's fantastic, even despite the fact that it's an IP I don't really care about. You know, so you see this over and over again. I love Monsters Incorporated, but the ride itself is kind of not that great, right? So the IP. There are limitations to that. You're right. And look, we see Disney Sea, we see Mystic Manor. These are non-IPs, and it's hitting home runs. So he's right. Here's the issue, though. From a business perspective, IP sells to the normies, right? So Mystic Manor is dope to us, but a normie wants to take their kids on the Frozen ride to see Anna and Elsa. The normie wants to go on the cruise line and meet Spider-Man while they're eating. All right, that's what the normie wants, right? But
and think, OG, I'm the opposite. I want to go on the cruise to actually meet Elsa.
There you go. See, George is an Elsa fan, but it's like that. But that's the thing. It's like, you know, they have to sell to the normies, and the normies want Spider-Man. They want Anna. They want Elsa. They want all these IP in there. We don't really care so much, but it matters to the normies. But what do you think, George?
Yeah, I feel like. I feel like that there's like this notion that, you know, one way or the other, you know, putting in an IP, you know, whether it's a huge success or it may not be a full success, you know, I think just with knowing that something is new, just for us in the community, yeah, we're going to go to it. We're going to, you know, enjoy it for what it is, you know. Well, of course, for most of us, a lot of us will just bitch about it, you know, and then put it in their vlogs or their blogs or their whatever you call it. But yeah, for the normies, it's like, what is the most popular? And that's kind of what Braden kind of touched upon when he was done in Animal Kingdom, when he said that they were considering on putting in the live action Jungle Book, because at that time it was a really hot, you know, blockbuster of a movie. But then you have these executives that are saying, oh, but Moana is like crushing it, like with the merch and this and that and Disney Plus and what have you. So it's like they put that on hold with the live action Jungle Book, and it's like, no, we got to do more Moana. So, but that's more catering to, as you said, OG, with just the normies, because that is for the generalized public, not necessarily just everyone in the small Disney community.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Slimer?
You know, I question the distinction between IP and non-IP. I don't think that that's a distinction that is actually made in-house at the Walt Disney Company. I think that's something that we've created here. I think at one point it might have been a relevant distinction, but I don't think that characterizes Disney intellectual property accurately anymore. I mean, it used to be that Haunted Mansion was considered not IP, and neither was, you know, the Tiki Room. But now we have Haunted Mansion merchandise. We have a Haunted Mansion, 2 Haunted Mansion movies. You know what I mean? So like,
and Pirates of the Caribbean too. I mean, that's
and Pirates, and you know, the list goes on. And shit, man, we got a Tomorrowland movie. So like, what is IP? What is the distinction? Like, how do you classify that? But even if you could, I really think that you'd be doing some mental gymnastics to do it. And I don't think that that distinction exists over WDI. They look at money, they look at trends, and that's really it.
Yeah. Oh, did you say money? Oh, hold on. Hold on. You said money, bro. Hold on. Here we go. There we go. And then I think maybe said she missed your drop, Slimer. So I'm going to play it one more time for good measure.
And all these dollars got commas that come with commas behind them. And all my slammers be slamming them. And all my slammers be slamming them. And all my slammers be slamming them. And all my slammers be slamming.
There we go. There we go. All right. So BJ Vincent here says, OG55, Citrus George, and Slimer, has there ever been a point when it comes to the recent situations with the Disney company where you're fed up with them and say, I am through with you, Disney? You know what? No. I got to be honest with you, BJ Vincent, and I'm probably going to be called a pixie duster for this. I don't really care. Call me a pixie duster. I really don't care. I get more annoyed and exhausted by the fandom than I do with anything Disney does. I gotta be honest. I see the fans on Twitter and X and it's all over social media, the nitpicking, the complaining, that stuff gets under my skin way more than the light bulb being burnt out at the new Walt Disney statue in Epcot. Yeah. I'm sorry. That's just where I stand with it. So no, I don't ever really get to this breaking point where, oh my God, I can't stand the mouse anymore. You know, they did, look what they did, you know, this, that, and the other. It's like,
and I think it's a common misconception too, because there are certain things that I don't agree with that the company has done, which with anything, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm done with the whole entire company. Because if I was to do that, that means every memory that I have created growing up as a kid, loving the company, watching the movies, going to the parks, having these monumental moments of the people that I am now incorporated with, that I now call my extended family, I'm basically saying that's all in vain, because then I'm diminishing the company that did that for me, just because there's certain things right now that I may disagree with or not like, or say, you know what, that was a bad choice of a decision or words or what have you. But no, that a very good question, BJ, but no, it would on the brink of, like, unless Disney was to do something illegal to where it's like the absolute, like, worst of the worst, where, you know, then, but I mean, to these petty things, as OG mentioned, that the fandom creates to kind of put out there just for their own basic clickbait. Yeah, that's more annoying than anything.
I think that's more annoying. Yeah, because I deal with that more in my personal life going on social media than I do with Disney's decisions. And like the thing with Disney's decisions are like, you know, it's like, okay, people are upset because they put Moana in Epcot, right? It's like there's worse things in the world. Yeah, you know,
check your priorities.
Exactly. You got to pick your battles a little bit here, you know, and it's just, for me, and that's the thing that frustrates me too, because I see on social media all these complaints, right, about the outrage of the day, right, that Twitter's mad about. And I'm like, I'm honestly, legitimately not mad about this. I'm honestly not upset over this. And I feel like a shill because everyone else is mad. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I have other things in my world to worry about.
You know what we do that when people want to call us pixie dusters or what have you? We only have one answer to give them.
Oh yeah, we got our banger, as Kaylee would say, our banger. There we go. But Slimer, what are your thoughts on this, man? Has Disney ever done anything where you're just like, you know what? I reached my breaking point. I am done with Disney. Has that ever happened, or not so much?
Hell no, dude. BJ, post in the comments if you're still in the chat. Go ahead and post in there if it affects your happiness. Because if it's affecting, well, don't let anything you can't control affect your happiness first and foremost. But if it is, take a break, go time out. Maybe go to theme park, you know. Maybe just like actually do the thing that everybody's complaining about, you know. Look at pictures. Go watch the news. Go see what's going on in Ukraine. Go see what's going on in Sudan, right? Get some perspective. You know, perspective usually alleviates a lot of that. Right? A lot of these people that are complaining to the point where it's like nauseating, they've lost perspective of the world, and they don't even realize that they're bitching about first world problems, because that's all this really is. I mean, come on. Complaining about whether it's a Moana ride or the Indiana Jones ride. Like, you know, like, sorry.
Yeah, I know.
It's not a real problem. I say it a lot. That's what I say on the channel here. It's not a real problem.
Well, and it's and everything with these parks and even the studio or whatever, anything with Disney is fluid. So okay, so you don't like the thing that they put into the parks today. In 5 years, that thing might be gone. It might be something different. We've seen this happen over and over and over again. Oh, so and so, this thing is broken. Well, in a week, it probably won't be. So why am I going to get all mad and give myself an ulcer over some shit that's like, first of all, temporary, and number one, and number two, it's like you said, Slimer. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Pick your battles. Now, look, if Disney was out here being like, if Disney was out here like, we're gonna scrub every Walt Disney reference from the company and like seriously drastic, insane kind of things. Okay, fine. You get upset, whatever. But other than that, man, I'm just like, whatever. Not a big deal. But Kiki and Luca, what are your personal goals for 2024? New orange butt plug? Kiki and Luca watched our Bad Thoughts podcast live show yesterday. Yeah, we have to watch that on their channel to get that joke.
Yeah.
A dinner at Yak and Yeti, another reference to last night's show. A date with a black pink girl, or marry someone with money.
This is a true Marvel question, because in order to understand this question, you have to go back and watch the Bad Thoughts podcast.
Right, it's the OG55 cinematic universe, right? So you got to watch the other show for this question to make sense. But no, my personal goals for 2024 with the channel is just I love our community. I absolutely love our community. We met a lot of great people. I just want to continue to grow that community. I want to continue to have these great conversations with everyone on the channel. And that's what I like to do. This is what I enjoy this stuff, So I want to continue to do that into 2024. In terms of the orange butt plug, absolutely fucking not. No. A dinner at Yak and Yeti, a date with a black pink girl, marry someone with money. Yeah, you know what? Okay, look. Yes, I will date a black pink girl. My bias for Blackpink is Jenny, so I'll date Jenny. I'll take her to Yak and Yeti. You'll have a nice dinner, and if it works out, I'll marry someone with money. Jenny from Blackpink, she's a millionaire, so it's all connected. What about you, George?
That's a mic drop right there, bro. You just like. Man, okay. Yeah. No to the butt plug. Absolutely not. I don't care if it's citrus scented or not. Like that has, But
So you're done with those, George? Those days are behind you?
Those are
no pun intended. Behind you.
Behind you. Oh shit. That's a good one. That is a good one. And same as OG. Like I enjoy doing this. I love being on with everyone, having a conversation. I love, talking to as I said, this community, it allowed me to gain an extended family. I take you guys as my family. You're my brothers. Everyone in the chat, I take you as an extended family to have these conversations with, not even just every week. I mean, we practically do this every day, whether it's a live show, whether it's a pre-recorded show, whether it's just in the DMs, we're constantly talking about something. And as OG said, I'm just glad to be part of the ride that he allowed me to have a piece of a platform on his channel to kind of share this with all of you. And as I said, I'm just going to be quite frank. I'm just going to go balls to the walls. I'm an attention whore. Like I love being like front and center. So it's like, I love having that kind of, conversation with people. I love making, with my sarcasm and everything, like you guys are the people to do that with. So I appreciate for you putting up with me. So I do appreciate it. But yeah, just like looking for things to come, we have some ideas in the pipeline. OG and I have been discussing. Definitely keep an eye out for some news coming into the new year. Even with some collaborations with other people that we've been already having on the channel and what have you. So it's definitely, I feel like 2024 is going to be a really good year as far as what the channel goes. Yeah. So now are you gonna date a Blackpink girl or not, dude? You gotta, OG, I have to say, as I said, coming from being an East Coaster, an upper Northeastern type of person, that I told OG this, that there's a fine difference between, and I don't mean any disrespect, but I'm just saying there's a complete culture difference with the Asian community that I never really got to really know so much of until I came out to California, because I didn't know really what it was all about, and because we don't have really too much of an Asian community where I'm from. So when I got to come out to California and visit OG, I got to see. So kind of I'm dragging this on, but yes, I definitely would. Jenny, I would go with Jenny. I'm sorry, I'm a
Jenny, wait, that's right. Jenny is your bias. I remember that from the last video.
Yeah.
And would you marry? Are you going to marry someone with money?
Yeah, because I need someone to pay for my Disney addiction.
There you go. There you go. Boom. What about you, Slimer? I mean, personal goals for 2024: orange butt plug, date a Blackpink chick, marry someone with money. What are your thoughts, brother?
Kiki and Luca, I'm gonna ignore this question. Let's go to the next one. Ridiculous.
There we go. We spent a lot of time on that one too. That's funny.
Yes, that's
Matthew Murr, friend of the channel. We love Matthew all the way from the UK. In Once Upon a Studio, do you think it's a possibility that only certain characters were outside during the botched first attempt at the photo? I believe that some characters might have been on their way to the courtyard during the first attempt, but paused in dismay to see everyone heading back inside before everyone began singing, prompting them to continue. Matthew, I got to be completely honest with you, brother. I did not watch it to that level of scrutiny. I'd have to watch it again to really even answer this. Yeah, man, I don't really remember like all the characters that came in and then saw Goofy fall and then went back inside. I don't really remember, but George.
Yeah, no, I'm actually curious. I don't recall that either because I really wasn't focused on that. But yeah, I definitely have to kind of go back and rewatch that because, as I said, now I'm curious.
Yeah, what about you, Slimer? Did you pick up on any of that or?
Nope.
Yeah, sorry, Matthew. Yeah, we didn't pick up on that, but I'll check it out. I'll see. That's interesting. I just I just love that part though when they're all walking out and Ralph, from Wreck-It Ralph. Bumps his head or whatever, and then he calls Mickey Garfield. I think that's hilarious. Absolutely freaking hilarious. Leo CH here says, about that Zootopia animatronic at Shanghai, do you think they are going to bring them into Zootopia show at Animal Kingdom? What are your thoughts on that, Slimer? Do you think, that Zootopia animatronic that we saw, we saw a few actually. We saw a few in the land, but we also saw that free roaming one that Daddy Josh, trotted out recently. But do you think any of these will come to Animal Kingdom, like in a show or whatever?
I mean, it's possible. I don't think that it's going to be incorporated into the ride unless they specifically cut out a portion of that ride for the animatronic. We'll see. I mean, there's no free roaming animatronics in the ride now. With A Bug's Life, so it really depends on how they reskin the animatronics. They might do a complete reskin, gut the whole ride completely, put in something different. I personally wasn't too impressed with it, to be honest with you. I think it was okay. I don't think it was the best. A lot of people are acting like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't think so. I think a remote control R2-D2 unit is just as impressive, really, to be honest with you. I mean, this thing had the ability to climb up and pull string. I mean, if that's something that gets your goat, cool, but it doesn't me.
I like how we're talking about Zootopia, and you said get your goat. That was good synergy right there. That was good.
Yeah, I if they introduce it, cool. If they don't, I'm not going to be butthurt about it.
There you go. What about you, George? If they bring some of those animatronics over to the Animal Kingdom.
I think it would be kind of cool. I feel like it would have been better utilized if they would have added the whole entire land. I don't think that they're going to put it into the show inside the Tree of Life. The one audio animatronic I do know that they're going to put in is Officer Clawhauser, who is going to actually be in the place of where Hopper resides now. But as far as I know, he's the only audio animatronic that I know is going to be incorporated in the show.
And our friend Kaylee in the chat is loving that because she loves that guy.
She loves Clawhauser. But I think as far as like with the roaming characters, I don't really think they're going to utilize that up until the point when there comes a time where Zootopia becomes a land domestically in the domestic parks.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Lovelow here says, do you think Hollywood Studios is out of place compared to the other parks at Disney World thematically? I mean, I don't really think that the parks. Here's the thing, Lovelow. Like, the parks don't need to really coincide thematically. I mean, each of them should offer a very different experience from each other. So I don't really know what you mean by that. Like, is it out of place? I don't think so. I think there's nothing wrong with having a Hollywood park in that mix. I'm fine with it. What about you, Summer? You feel like it's out of place compared to the other ones, or not so much, or?
No, I agree with you. I don't think that it's thematically out of place, because by saying it's, thematically out of place, you're implying that there's a theme amongst the other parks. Well, what is that theme? Because thematically, they're all completely different.
Right.
So if the differentiation between one park to the other is the commonality between all the other parks, then it's within theme. So
I agree. What about you, George?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like there's at times where, Disney's Hollywood Studios is kind of lost in translation of how people perceive of understanding it. That's what I really mean by it having like a little bit of an identity crisis, so to speak, because it used to be one park specifically geared towards one thing, and now it's kind of transitioning into something else. So I think it's like kind of like in that middle point where everyone's trying to figure out like which route is Disney going. But no, I don't think that it's a completely like out there, because you'd be saying the same thing with DCA, and it's like, even though DCA does need, some expansion, does need some work, but to say that it's thematically like completely out compared to the other parks, I feel like it has its own kind of feel to it, which OG, you got a chance to experience that yourself because you had your own interpretation of it up until you actually went, and it became an experience that actually was much better than what you had expected.
Yeah, what I expected was actually like here in California, we have Universal Studios Hollywood, and there's like that one corridor with the Transformers ride, which is a big like sound stage with like just Optimus Prime like tacked onto the wall, right? I thought Hollywood Studios was going to be like that, a lot of that kind of stuff. And when I actually went there, it was a lot more theming and a lot more immersive than I was expecting. It was more old school Hollywood, that old timey Hollywood vibe. I dug it. I dug it a lot more than I thought I would. And so, yeah, I was impressed. Absolutely. Leo CH here. Do you have a friend or a family member that you've tried that tried to give a chance on something, but they still won't? Mine with my whole family and my animated films, they just don't like animated films. I had
Preach.
George is like, preach. I had an ex-girlfriend, right, who I tried for years to get her to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Okay. She would not do it. She hated any movie that had like animation mixed with live action. She won't do it. Mary Poppins, she wouldn't watch it. Roger Rabbit, she wouldn't watch it. It was incredibly frustrating to me because these are great movies. Give it a chance. She wouldn't touch it. She just didn't like that mix of animation and live action. What about you, George?
Was it P.L. Travers?
Yeah, P.L. Travers. Yeah, that's my ex. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's well, this isn't the main reason, but this is partial of the reason why I am now single and no longer married. I tried for many years.
Oh, spill the tea, George. Spill the tea.
I'm spilling the tea. I've tried for many years to try to get my now ex-wife kind of encompass her into of how I incorporate Disney in my everyday life, for which she did oblige to it. She did enjoy it. She did allow me at times to, have my times of, going on my solo trips and what have you to meet up with my friends and everything and trying to involve her. She did enjoy going on the Disney Cruise Line and going to the parks, but there was a point of time where it was like, okay, this is nice, but now it became like a constant thing where it just wasn't for her, and it's an unfortunate, and as I said, there's a lot more folks behind the scenes of why we're divorced right now. That's not the main only reason, but I just feel like that was part of the issue because I've tried so much to get her to understand where I'm coming from, which I did tell her in the very beginning. I am a Disney freak, and she's like, oh, so you watch the movies and everything? I'm like, yeah, but there's more to it than that. This is like a healthy obsession that, that it just, as I said, I incorporate Disney in my everyday life. I eat, sleep, breathe Disney 24/7, whether it's talking about it, recording it, living it, it's watching it, traveling to it. There's just, at some point in time, Disney is incorporated in my everyday life. And it's just something that she just couldn't handle. And as I said, I tried, and I know the next time that I get into a relationship, it has to be someone that is embedded into the company, that has a full-fledged commitment to the company. I am done with this training shit. I'm not doing it no more. How about you, Slimer?
That's hilarious. Nothing really comes to mind. I mean, other aside from like differentiations in musical taste, but that's pretty normal. You can't make everybody like the same music you like, right? So,
yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have a lot to add to that. I mean, I don't peer pressure people if they don't like something. I'm just like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
what I mean?
feel you.
Yeah,
I more so had to do it because I had to live with the person, so it was either like,
yeah,
and now it was sort of like to kind of get her to understand like where I was coming from,
Right.
but that obviously it wasn't going to happen, so. Yeah, so here I am.
There you go.
Yeah.
Love it or shove it. Single, ready to mingle.
There you go.
But Leo CH, everybody in my family likes animation. Even my wife, she got into Star Trek Lower Decks. So, and if you haven't seen Star Trek Lower Decks, check it out. It's hilarious. It's like Rick and Morty, but Star Trek.
Oh, that's interesting. Never heard of that. That's interesting. Is that on Paramount Plus?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So Matthew Murr here says, do you think Disney should have selected Cinderella to start off when You Wish Upon a Star in Once Upon a Studio, given Walt's favoritism of the character, or do you believe all the princesses are of equal value, thereby eliminating the need of Walt's personal favorite to have the solo part? Wow, that's kind of a deep cut, Matthew. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I don't think that was necessary. I mean, Walt, yeah, he did love Cinderella, but he also loved Mary Poppins, and he loved obviously Mickey. And I don't know, I'm fine with how they handled that, just in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on that, George? Should they have had Cinderella kind of have to start singing the "When You Wish Upon a Star" because it was one of Walt's favorites, or doesn't matter? Or how do you feel about it?
No, I don't really think there would be favoritism, in between the Disney princesses. I feel like, they all deserved the kind of the same amount of screen time, if you will, because they all had their own, purpose, of how Walt felt towards Cinderella, of how Snow White was the very first Disney princess. They each had something, that they brought to the table as far as their own individuality as a Disney princess. So I don't really think that one should have had more over the other. I would have just kind of utilized them just in the moment.
Yeah, 100%. Leo CH here says, do you think to bring a family to the movie theater, need to start selling some package deals? I don't know, man. I mean, the thing with Leo is I think the theaters they're not dead, but they're definitely limping along. Animation has a huge problem in theaters right now. Animation, I know Mario did really well, but that's kind of a unicorn. We saw Wish, didn't do well. Migration, not tracking well. Teenage Kraken movie from DreamWorks a few months ago, didn't do well. Animation's having a rough go right now in theaters. I think families are starting moving towards like streaming for this genre, or not genre. I'm sorry, for this medium. And I think I don't know. You can start to do this incentivization, I guess, and maybe that might bring a few more people in. But I think sometimes technology just sort of marches along and things get kind of left behind. And I think that theaters are kind of that. I think that eventually, I think they're going to kind of be on their way out. Maybe not completely, but they're certainly not going to have the cultural relevance that they once had. But what are your thoughts on that, Slimer?
Well, Leo, I don't know where you are located in the world, but Regal Cinemas actually has a monthly movie pass for about $21.99, which gives an individual access to see an unlimited amount of movies that they want to. But there are other variables that prevent families specifically from going to a movie theater. I was just talking to my buddy today, Jay, and he was complaining about how he wants to go to the movies. I told him Wonka was a really good movie. It's a great great Christmas film, if you had to pick one, he's got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, and for him, it's just not worth the hassle. So a lot of times, and like OG said, the cultural significance really isn't there. Like families back then, before streaming, would put up with their kids acting up in a movie theater, but not so much now. If it's an option, and if the movie is going to be available on a streaming service, within 60 days of its theatrical release. So I don't think package deals are going to help. You'd have to look to see, Leo. What I would say is look up to see if the AMC, because AMC actually did Movie Pass. That didn't work. I think that came out at $9.99, but that was about 10 years ago now. And you can actually go on to, you can actually look up on YouTube the AMC Movie Pass history. I believe John, what's his name, OG?
Campia.
John Campia, thank you. Yeah, when he was with AMC, he was a big proponent of AMC Movie Pass because it did have a lot of value. But see what Regal Cinemas is doing with their pass. If you have one locally too, if that's something you're interested in, I don't know if you knew about that, but that's a really cool idea. They also do have Regal. Usually, you have to check with your local theater because I believe these are independently owned and operated as part of a franchise. But on Tuesdays, they also have like member deals. So if you download the app on your phone and create an account, you automatically become a Regal Cinemas member. And I think you get, don't quote me on this, but you do get discounted popcorn and you get discounted tickets. So there are incentives, but again, the incentives aren't enough to drive people in droves to the movie theaters like the 90s, like the 80s, and, and so on and so forth.
Those days seem to be behind us for sure.
Yeah. It's hard when you can get a 65-inch TV for $500 too. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And you just have an $8 subscription to like a Disney Plus or whatever. And you get everything pretty much everything in their library or a Netflix. And you have hundreds and hundreds of titles at your fingertips at any given moment. It cuts into the theater thing, and I like the stay-at-home experience. I like watching stuff at home.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a place for the theater, like we talked about, I think the other day, George, like with Endgame and things like that, but for the most part, dude, if I'm going to go watch like some romantic comedy or something like that, I don't need to like Superbad or something. Like, I don't need to see that in a theater, like a movie like that. Right. There's a lot.
Here's the funny thing about that movie. Cause I actually did see that in theaters, but I think the hype of those kind of movies died down. So it doesn't really matter. But in that moment,
yeah,
I swear to you, the reaction of us in the audience, I think even like was even more funnier than actually what was happening up on screen, because certain scenes of the movie, I swear there were parts of the movie where I actually had to go back and rewatch it because the laughing and the clapping was just in hysteria that you couldn't even hear really what was going up on the screen, but it was the experience of that. But I do agree with you, OG. I think if you were to go into a movie theater now with a type of movie like that, you probably wouldn't even fill up the first 2 rows. It's an unfortunate thing of how like it transitioned, but yeah, I think like with the movie going experience, when you take a movie like the Spider-Man franchise or the Avengers or Star Wars, those are the movies that you say, you know what, I really want to see up on a giant big screen, with ultra surround sound, what have you. But yeah, these basic like rom-coms and these smaller independent films, no one, if you're already paying for a subscription, then why are you going to go out into a theater and spend more money just to watch it one time when then you're going to be getting it on your streaming service in a short amount of time anyway?
Yeah, 100%. Kaylee right here, best character from Zootopia. That's interesting. So Kaylee, I like the Clawhauser. Clawhauser. I can never say that. I like him a lot. I think he's adorable. But I think my all-time favorite is probably the Sloth. He's pretty funny.
Flash.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Yeah.
I think he's cool. What about you, Italiano? Favorite Zootopia character?
My favorite character is actually a character that wasn't really utilized a lot in the film. He was just like briefly there. I don't know his name, nor he's that hippie wildebeest type thing, like when he's doing the yoga. God, I can't. Kaylee, help me out here. I don't know. Yeah. I forget his name, but he's just in that scene where they're doing their investigation and they go to this like yoga type thing. I just love his character. He's shown briefly, but I don't know. I think he's kind of trippy.
I think his name's Yax.
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 Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hippie who does like the whole like meditation thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's funny. He's funny. Okay. So CJ Stryker here says, good evening. What is your personal outlook for Disney in 2024, especially in the studio and media areas? Oh, that's interesting. It's tough, CJ, because, you know, like there's a lag, right, with content. So I think Disney's making moves right now to improve and turn the ship around. But are we going to see the fruits of that labor next year? Probably not. You know, because the 2024 films are really a product of 2021, you know, or even 2020. So
really quick, OG, I just want to say, and I think when you speak to like the studio and media areas of the company, and I think this goes with any studio right now, it's almost like a day-to-day basis, really. Like anything can change the games, you know, as far as like the studio side, because back in the time you could say, okay, yeah, here's what's in the pipeline, and you actually kind of get what they're giving you. But now, like, again, with everything that's going on between the studios of buying this company and swapping it for this, given that, it's like no one really knows like what direction it's going. And you, as I said, we basically have to just kind of keep watching it day for day to see what really is going to be the final product. So yeah, I'm right there with you, OG. I feel like it's kind of hard to really depict of what really is going to go down.
It's probably going to be rough to some degree because again, it's residual stuff. But I think 3 and 4 years from now, though, you'll start to see much better content. You know, because a lot of stuff happened. You know, we had the pandemic. Obviously, a lot of people forget that, but that was a big factor in the equation. You know, that's also a big reason why budgets were higher because of all the COVID protocols and all that stuff. So there's a lot of the elements here, but you're not going to see it fixed next year. Absolutely not. But what are your thoughts, Slimer?
Well, for next year, I'd like to take it studio by studio. I really think that's the only way to approach it that makes sense, right? Because not every studio under the Disney umbrella is performing to the same, has the same performative, I can say it, they're just not performing the same, right? I mean, like, so for example, 20th Century Studios, let's call it, next year, they're dropping, The First Omen, which is a horror movie. That's going to do well. Horror movies, they always do well as long as the budget's, you know, well regulated. They're always winning because then they have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. That can kind of go both ways in 2024. I mean, I don't remember the last time the Planet of the Apes movies came out, but I would think that would do well. Inside and Out 2 is tracking very good. I think Pixar's Inside and Out 2 is going to make near $700 million. But then the Marvel Studio stuff, I mean, other than Deadpool 3, Marvel doesn't have anything next year. And then you have Lucasfilm, which has and then you have Mufasa the Lion King. I think that's going to do well. I don't think it'll be $1 billion, but I think it'll make more than 500 million to less than 900 million. Which for
that's the Lion King prequel, right?
Yeah, I think that's going to do pretty good. They also have this movie called The Amateur, which is a remake of a 1981 film. It's like a spy thriller. I think that's going to do okay. And then they have a whole bunch of Lucasfilm stuff coming out on Disney Plus next year. Skeleton Crew, Tales of the Jedi, Bad Batch Season 3, and The Acolyte. I think all those are going to do pretty good.
Well, those are for Disney Plus.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So that's going to be the Disney Plus releases. And they have X-Men 97, which doesn't have a release date. And then they have your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah. So
I think they're going to do better than they did in 2023. But like OG said, this is all 2021 stuff. you know, so 2025 is going to be better, but next year is absolutely going to be better than the abysmal year that they had this year.
And what I also think that people have to realize too, is when it comes to how much money a movie makes at the box office, right? Disney has a budget problem. So the profit margins are like, you know, razor thin. They're not great, right? Or they're even, you know, in the red. But a lot of these movies that are considered flops, like, you know, they still got a lot of people in the theater. You know, like Little Mermaid, the live action movie, while it wasn't a huge home run hit financially because it didn't quite make, you know, with the budget, it was hard to get that back. It still made a decent amount of money. They still put a lot of butts in seats. I mean, that was a fairly popular movie. The budget and how much profit they make is a different equation, right?
Right.
Two movies. You can have one movie make $1 billion and this movie make $1 billion. If this movie only costs $50 million to make, well, it's a popular movie and it made a huge amount of profit. If this $1 billion movie had a $900 million budget, well, it doesn't make as much money, but it still had the same amount of people seeing it. So both are popular. So the profitability is not necessarily a measuring stick,
Right.
you know, for the popularity. So it's interesting, you know, interesting to think about.
OG, before we go to the next question, I just want to build off of that point if I can. I know we got a lot of questions to go to, but
Yeah.
Universal, for example, they spent less than $1 billion for all 13 of the movies that they released in 2023. Less than $1 billion. I think it was like 940, 971 to do the math. But they grossed over $4 billion. Their three highest production movies, they had two at $100 million. One was Super Mario. I can't remember what the number, the other one was off the top of my head. And then Fast X was the outlier with like a $340 million budget. But outside of those three movies, none of their movies were over $100 billion in production. And yet they grossed over $4 billion. So it is absolutely a budget problem. Because had Disney, you know, performed it or budgeted at those strict budgetary constraints that Universal does, and I'm pretty sure what Universal does is they say, hey, you got $1 billion, don't ask for any more, go make it happen. Like, and if you can't make it happen for less than that, then we're going to find somebody that can. And that's the approach that Disney has to take. It's none of this, you know, oh, well, we need another $50 million to finish this movie. It's like, no, you're fired. Like, you're out of here. I gave you $100 million, make it happen. If you can't, then you're not the right person for the job. And I think that's the approach that Universal takes. And they need to be really aggressive with that, or else, you know, it's just going to be another bad year for them.
Yeah, the budgets are a huge issue. Massive issue. Andrew Kellogg here says, what type of attraction do you like in the Disneyland version of Avatar Land? The same as in Animal Kingdom, different attraction in Disneyland. Okay, so I think he's asking, like, what would you pull from the Animal Kingdom version and put it in Disneyland? And if that's what you're asking, Andrew, I might be misinterpreting you. But if that's what you're asking, I would absolutely do Flight of Passage. I mean, if we're gonna pull from Animal Kingdom and put it in the Disneyland's Pandora, I would pull that one. What are your thoughts, George?
Okay, I think if I'm understanding the question correctly, I think it's kind of like shorthanded. So it seems like he's asking, would you do a same attraction from Animal Kingdom, or would you do something different in Disneyland?
Well, that's
if I'm understanding.
Okay,
if I'm understanding that correctly.
If that's your question, Andrew, then I would do something completely different. I wouldn't want to clone. If I would prefer something completely different. What about you, George?
I'm the same way. I would these carbon copies of these attractions. I know in Disney's eyes, it's much cheaper because it's basically, you know, you're just making a copycat of one. But I mean, for us as guests, as Disney enthusiasts, when I travel out to California, I want to experience attractions solely that's based in California. If I wanted to ride the same rides, I'd just take a 2-hour flight down to Florida. You know, I like having those different immersive experiences. When I go to Disneyland, it's okay, I get those rides that I can't get at Walt Disney World. I get Matterhorn, I get Cars Land, I have Buena Vista Street, and this was my issue with them bringing Indiana Jones into Animal Kingdom, even though I think it would be very successful, but I like Indy over at Disneyland. It's like the one place where I could say, you know what, if I want a piece of Indiana Jones, I'll go over to Disneyland. Unless if they have, even though it's going to be the same type of ride vehicle over at Disneyland, but if they have a completely different storyline, which I'm for sure that's what they're going to have to do anyway for it to fit into Animal Kingdom.
Right.
But yeah, I would want something completely different. Maybe do something more that's leaning towards the Way of Water, you know, or something of that nature. Or even by the time we get it, we may be into the third film by that time. So
that's true.
Yeah, I would definitely do something completely different.
What about you, Slimer?
Yeah, I know. I like the differentiation between the two. You know, me living right outside of Walt Disney World. Had Walt Disney World just duplicated everything those at Disneyland or vice versa, there would be no reason to go to one park or the other. So I do appreciate that there's a distinction in style. There's a distinction in taste. The way they approach rides and attractions are completely different, and that's why I appreciate about that. And that's a reality for all the lanes internationally as well. So no, I don't want to see anything copied at all.
Yeah.
I think Galaxy's Edge was kind of a big miss. I mean, there's two of them. I don't want two of them. I want one. And then when I go to Disneyland, I want a completely different Star Wars experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So-
100%. 100%.
And really quick before we move on to the next question, and as far as for Flight of Passage goes, I would kind of like lean more into of how they do for Star Tours. Like
Right,
as
right.
more of the films come on, maybe give us different show scenes so you don't know really which one you're going to
Sure.
get. So it'll be completely random at every time.
100%. 100%. Jason Hill. Nice of you to join us, brother. Jason's a really great guy. Thank you for joining us, sir. Have you ever been to Club 33? And what can you tell us about the experience? What about Royal 21? Yeah, I have a family member that is actually a member, so I've gone quite a bit to Club 33, the lounge there, and 1901 in DCA. In terms of the experience, like the Club 33, like the dinner is like a 6-course meal, and the food is really artsy and small. So I don't really like the dining experience so much. It's not really my cup of tea. The lounge, though, is actually more my style. That's where you sit down, you can grab a drink, you can grab normal portions of food. It's less artsy, that is fantastic. I love that. 1901, though, I think is my favorite, to be honest with you. I know Club 33 has more history, but 1901 is like that old school Hollywood vibe. You have all the pictures of like the 9 old men at Walt Disney on the walls. And it just has that energy in there, man. I love to go in there and just grab a bite to eat, grab a drink. I think it's amazing. I love 1901. Now, Royal 21, I've never been to. I've never been to Royal 21. What about you, George?
I have been to Club 33. Not because of this gorgeous face. Trust me, it can get around. But it's actually.
George, we know that face card never gets declined, brother. It never gets declined.
But it's actually I got to experience Club 33 because of this guy's family member. I actually got to. They gave me the experience to go in and cross off a big time Disney bucket list of mine because I've always wanted to just experience to see what it's like. And I actually agree with you, OG. I absolutely love the lounge area. I got to see the old elevator shaft that they have in there on display. I got to buy some Club 33 merch. Got to do some experiences that I never thought I would ever be able to do. So big thank you to you, OG, and a big thank you to your family member for giving me that opportunity. But no, I've never done Royal 21, and I also have been in 1901. I actually agree with you. I love Club 33 for the nostalgia that it was something that was brought upon Walt himself.
Right.
But I think as far as the overall atmosphere, I kind of dig 1901 over at DCA.
Yeah, it's a chill vibe, man. It's a chill vibe, Slimer, have you ever been to Club 33, even out here in Anaheim, or the ones they have over there in Florida?
No, I haven't. I got a good friend that has, though. He shared the experience with me. It sounds fantastic. But no, I personally, I've never been.
Yeah.
It's on my bucket list, though. So
yeah, it's an interesting experience. But the lounges are where it's at. The 6-course meal or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Man, if you're hungry, that's not the greatest. That's for sure. CJ Stryker here says, well, who's your favorite Marvel character? It's kind of hard. I kind of have a few. Actually, I like Scarlet Witch a lot. I think Elizabeth Olsen, she was awesome in that role. I like Captain America and Rocket Raccoon. Those are my peeps. Go ahead, Simon.
CJ Stryker, is that a trick question? Like, are you going to send a bomb to my house if I don't say Scarlet Witch?
Yeah, with the logo. Well, I mean, with the picture and everything. But what's your thoughts on that, Slimer? Who's your fave? Or do you have a couple faves?
Spider-Man.
Okay, Spidey. What about you, George?
For me, I don't like any one of these individual, but as a group, I love the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah, man.
I love the Guardians. Like
yeah,
I don't like one a little bit over the other. They're a phenomenal group together. of how they harmonize. You know what I mean? I can't ever say that word. I'm still getting like those backflashes from harmonious. That's why I can't say that word. That they coexist so well together. They feed off of one another, and yeah, I do dig Spider-Man, and I like the Scarlet Witch, but I like Elizabeth Olsen as the Scarlet Witch.
There you go.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Tayo Boy here says, hey, everyone, hope you're enjoying your night. Here's a question. What realistic Disney park announcement could you see happen before D23? Oh, that's interesting. Before D23? Well, I think Disneyland Forward will be announced before D23. I think we'll get the word on that when they vote on it in the spring. And that's a Disney park announcement, basically. Man, other than that, I mean, maybe the Avatar stuff, because I don't know, maybe that'll come out sooner. I'm not really sure though.
I wonder if it would be like in the notion of where they give like an announcement, like to say an expansion is coming to DCA, news on this later, but they'll give more in depth into it at the expo.
Yeah, it could be something like that. What are your thoughts? What's your prediction, George?
Yeah, I think if anything was to be mentioned, I mean they've dragged this out long enough. I think if they were to mention anything, it would have to either be the Avengers E-ticket or the Avatar. But also based on what you had mentioned earlier, OG, once they green light the Disneyland Forward, that would depict which one that they would choose.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Slimer? And it can be, Anaheim or Florida, whatever.
That's a tough one, man, because they have pretty much announced everything. Pretty much announced, they pretty much announced everything. So like anything they announce is probably something they've decided after into 2024. Maybe some new Star Wars things, happenings, dues, picture photo opportunities at Galaxy's Edge. I really don't know, man. They're going to leave all the big announcements for D23. So any announcements prior to D23 are going to be pretty lackluster.
Pretty minor. Yeah, I agree. Suave CLT here says, are original lands dead? Will theme park lands forever be dedicated to one film property, or could we one day get another Adventureland, Tomorrowland, Fantasyland? Well, I mean, they're not completely dead because we are getting Fantasy Springs over in Tokyo, which is basically like another version of Fantasyland, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't think they're completely dead. I think here's the thing. I think that the vague lands, Adventureland, Tomorrowland, those kind of lands, we might get stuff like that. But what they fill those lands with will be IP. So like the Fantasy Springs thing, right? It's a generalized fantasy concept, but it's all IP. So I think that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, I don't think that we're necessarily only going to get one IP lands forever here going, forever going into the future. I think that these vague lands, I think serve a purpose too, because if you're Disney, right, you can fit more of your IP in a vague land than you do with a single IP thing, so there's a little more money to be made. Their marketing potential with merch and things like that. So I don't think it's dead necessarily, but I think that that's the trend right now though, because Wizarding World kind of spearheaded that whole thing. That started that whole revolution with a single IP lands.
And it may still continue on with the domestic parks, because if they do go forward with the Beyond Big Thunder, if they do something with the villains, that's basically not a one story, one film IP. It's basically they're going to incorporate all the different various villains throughout the many different films. So if they do go that route, that's also allowing for another land to not just be based off of one IP as well.
One of the advantages of the original land, so Adventureland, Tomorrowland, Fantasyland, is they're not built off of any specific IP, so they're going to have just intrinsically they're going to have more value to them. They're going to have better longevity. They're not going to get as outdated as fast because they're not depicting a $2 billion movie that came out 5 years ago.
That's a great point. Fantastic point. Kaylee, what's your guys' reaction when you first walked into Epcot for the first time? My reaction was just in sheer awe. I absolutely loved Epcot. I was looking forward to Epcot the most, actually, going into our Walt Disney World trip. That was the park I was really, really looking forward to. I just fell in love with it. I think that's a fantastic park. I was just in awe over Spaceship Earth. Once I got in there and I got to go, World Showcase and everything, I just think it's a brilliant park. Now, I'm surprised because going into our Walt Disney World trip, I was kind of expecting Epcot to take the top spot for me as my favorite park. It was close, but I actually ended up, I think that honor would actually go to Animal Kingdom. I think Animal Kingdom squeaked out that top spot for me personally, but Epcot is a very close second. But Slimer, do you remember your first time going to Epcot and what was your reaction?
No, dude, I went to Epcot. My first time in Epcot was in 1982. So my reaction was probably something along the lines of followed by crying. Yeah,
absolutely. George, do you remember?
Yeah, I actually got to experience Epcot for the very first time during the Millennium. Which that's when the Millennium was heavily focused on Epcot. They had the Tapestry of Nations, which then became the Tapestry of Dreams kind of parade. It was like the one parade I do remember they ever had at Epcot, where they involved a lot of the cultures and the countries of World Showcase, bringing all the nations together and what have you. And then, of course, they had Spaceship Earth with the giant sorcerer Mickey hand with the wand that had the year 2000 over it. I thought it was kind of cool at the time. It was very synergetic to feel like not even just experiencing Epcot, but to be there for the Millennium. That just made it the bar extra magical.
Yeah, 100%. And our boys over at the Bad Thoughts podcast here with a question: if you could watch one Disney movie and ride one Disney ride for the rest of your lives, what would they be? The movie for me would be Beauty and the Beast. As Kaylee would say, it's a banger. I love that movie. It's damn near flawless. I just love it. Actually, it is flawless. I can't think of a single thing wrong with it, to be honest with you. Perfect movie, pretty much. In terms of attractions, though, I would probably say, I don't know, I'd probably say Pirates. That quintessential.
Good call.
Yeah. Pirates or the Disneyland Railroad, one of those two. What about you? What about you, Slimer? One ride, one movie.
Man, so for movies, so like if I were just blurt out an answer right now, it would be the Three Caballeros. And in terms of rides, that's tough, man. I don't think that I would be able to not ride the Haunted Mansion again. So for rides, let's go with the Haunted Mansion.
Okay. All right. Interesting, George.
So for movies, okay, so it would probably be Beauty and the Beast, but just for the sake of kind of being a little bit different, which would be a very close second, it would have to be a Goofy movie. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just like a 90s kid, and I used to watch that movie a lot. Like a lot. It just the music, the soundtrack with Tevin Campbell as Powerline with Eye to Eye and Stand Out, like that just screams so 90s to me. It takes me back to my childhood. But as far as top tier Disney film would definitely be yours, OG. It would be Beauty and the Beast. That movie is damn near perfect. I don't think you can get it any more perfect. They hit like a 10 out of 10 out of that one. As far as rides go,
while you're thinking about that, I take my answer back. The one ride I want to be able to have access to for the rest of my life is Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. That ride is so good.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it was funny that you say that, Slimer, because that's the one I was thinking about.
Well, I mean, you can still pick it, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
we'll ride it together, dude.
That's it. Okay. Yeah, you sold me. Cosmic Rewind.
You guys are twinning. You guys are twinning. Absolutely. Undead Nerd here says, with Disney and Fox, now Paramount and Warner, where would Universal go? Well, the Paramount and Warner thing is not a done deal by any means. It's just very preliminary. Universal might still make a move for Warner. You know, we'll see. We don't know. That's, you know, a lot of noise out there right now. But if it does pan out where Warner and Paramount, you know, merge, that kind of leaves Universal a little bit in a pickle, doesn't it? I mean, you know, I don't know. I think Universal, I've been saying it, and I might get a lot of shit for it, you know, but I think they have an IP problem.
And they need to lean on their IPs because they have really good IPs. The problem is they have more faith in other IPs versus their own.
That's good. That's a good
yeah,
point.
That's a fair point because a lot of their original IPs they removed to put in someone else's. Like they took out Back to the Future for The Simpsons.
Yeah, you can't tell me that Back to the Future is not relevant. Back to the Future every single year since the last movie has consistently stayed a relevant pop culture icon in the United States. I mean, everybody's seen Back to the Future. Everybody loves Back to the Future. They could bring back the ride right now, take The Simpsons out, bring back Back to the Future 2.0, and I tell you guys, there's going to be a 2, 3, 4 hour line outside. Like no shit.
I agree with that. And as much as I love Diagon Alley and what have you, I'm still pissed that they took out Jaws.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Well, and here's the other thing too. Even some of the, like, I think Mummy is a Universal movie. I'm pretty sure it is. And then
it is.
E.T. is a Universal, right?
Right.
Yes.
It's like out here in California, we lost our E.T. ride for Mummy, which was, I think, a stupid decision because E.T., the merch, I think that the E.T. merch is, I think, selling much better. The E.T. merch is really cute at Universal. Yeah. The E.T. merch is really, really adorable. But like, what's Mummy doing? Like, no one really cares about that franchise.
Isn't your Mummy on the chopping block?
It is on the chopping block, but we don't know what's gonna. We don't know what's gonna replace it.
But it's been on the chopping block for like 10 years.
Yeah, there's been rumors of that for a while now.
Yeah,
but we'll see. You know, I mean, I don't know.
Same with the one down here, but you know, they got rid of confrontation down here, and I think the reason they got rid of it was because, you know, they had a 50-foot animatronic. They had to, well, 2 of them that they had to continuously maintain. So I can understand. Same thing with Jaws. Jaws, I think they had said that it was like over $1 million in maintenance fees alone just to maintain Jaws.
They had the same problems with the attraction that Spielberg had with the film.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I get that, but like, I mean, you got rid of Jaws completely. Like the only thing that's left of Jaws now is just the shark hanging.
Yeah,
you know, next
that
to
pissed
that
hurt. That hurt. And as I said, I do love Diagon Alley, but I mean, yeah, I just had a special because every time I associated with the Universal Studios Florida, Jaws was one of the main attractions aside from the Nickelodeon Studios that I kind of like lean towards.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no, that's a great point though, Slimer. Like a lot of their old school IPs are heavy hitters, and they kind of abandon those for kind of like these other, like, look, I get it. Mario is huge. Harry Potter is huge. Even Minions is huge, but it's like, man, for like Back to the Future and all, they're great IP there.
OG, I wish you had the opportunity to go to Universal Studios back in the 90s, dude, because it was in my opinion the best theme park in the world at the time. Like when they had Ghostbusters, King Kong, Alfred Hitchcock, they had the Psycho House over there. Nice. T2 3D, Back to the Future. I mean, dude, Earthquake. That place was, and they had Nickelodeon Studios, and then they also had the movie, you know, they also had the studio tour. There, in my opinion, it was the best park at the time. It peaked right around 1995, 1996.
Slimer, did you ever get the opportunity to experience like a live taping at Nickelodeon Studios? Like any of the game shows or the like all that or Kingdom of or anything?
No, I've done the tours, right? Like, so, you know, you go upstairs, you can actually, they have these walkways where you can look down into the studio while they're doing a live recording. But no, I never sat into a live recording.
Okay.
Did you?
No, I never done it. I'm trying to meet someone who actually got that experience because I would have loved to have that experience. I do know of the tour though.
There was nothing better than 1990s Universal Studios, man, and that's why it's like so highly regarded. Like,
and they had like Rocky and Bullwinkle in there, like they were like the headliners of that park.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of a lot of their, like the Minions. I know they're popular with kids, but it's, I don't know, it's not my thing really. But you know,
Fievel. I mean, come on, who doesn't love Fievel?
American Tail is an amazing animated film, dude. Amazing animated film. Mm-hmm. You know, actually, I didn't do the live taping at Nickelodeon in Florida, but when I was young, I've said this a few times on the channel. I wanted to be an animator.
Right.
and I interned at Nickelodeon Studios in Burbank on Olive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for like, I don't know, like I think it was like a year or something like that. It was around the
Yeah.
time of Angry Beavers. I know it sounds dirty, but it's not. It was a cartoon. But around the time Angry Beavers was out, and so that was one of the shows that I was like interning for, and the other one, the Cat Dog show.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so I didn't go to a taping, but I was kind of in behind the scenes a little bit, at least with the animation. That was kind of
That's
cool.
interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know
CJ
that.
Stryker here says, have you seen Sume by Toho? And if so, what you think of it and it being nominated? CJ, I haven't seen it, and I'm not familiar with it. What about you, Slimer?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with it, but I haven't seen it.
I'm familiar with it too, but I haven't seen it, unfortunately.
Okay. CJ Stryker, 2023 was a hard year in film overall. Why do you think film struggled like they did? I don't know. I mean, I think well, part of it is quality. You know, I mean, look, here's the thing. Right now, we talked about it with streaming, right? The bar is higher now to get you out of your house and into the theater. It just is. So you have to have a pretty good movie, and people really want to see it to get people out of the house and into that theater. I think that's a big problem, you know? So for Super Mario, they did it. They thought it was worth it. For Barbie, they thought it was worth it. Oppenheimer, they thought it was worth it. But a lot of these other movies, which like a movie like Wish, for example, might have done really well 4 or 5 years ago. But that bar now is so high, you know, because a lot of people would just like to see it at home. But what are your thoughts on this, Slimer?
So Disney had a pretty rough year. The reason that Disney had a rough year is because of their budgets, plain and simple. They had a lot of, in my opinion, they had a lot of pretty average to good movies. I don't think they had a lot of below average movies this year, but they had a lot of average. But they got to get their budgets under control. I mean, I think, I was doing the numbers, and the average production budget was over, was over like 50% of the actual total gross of the film, and you need to be somewhere more around 20 to 25% tops. Universal had a great year. That's a superb year. I mean, their 3 most expensive movies cumulatively cost $540 million.
And that Five Nights at Freddy's movie was like on a shoestring budget, from what I hear.
Dude, it was like it was like a $20 or $30 million movie, and it grossed what, $300 million globally.
Crazy.
But Universal has consistently done that, where they lean hard into horror films because those horror films are so cheap. They can do them for $15-20 million, and then they make $100 million or $80 million.
And I feel like John Carpenter kind of spearheaded that with Halloween. Like, he basically used his like home movie camera.
Well, now that Disney owns 20th Century Fox, and Fox has that iconic horror library, they absolutely need to do the same thing.
And I feel like two very good Disney films that came out this year for me was Elemental and Wish.
Right.
I enjoyed both of those films. It's just unfortunate because I feel like the weight of all the other films of not doing so well, and to the two that just kind of sat in the winds, that even though that they were very good films, I feel like that it kind of got overshadowed by all the negativity of the films that didn't do so well. And I feel like that's kind of what happened with when 2D animation was kind of falling short, as opposed to the 3D animation with Atlantis, Treasure Planet. I felt like those are really good films, but they kind of fell to the wayside because 3D animation was the new top dog at the time.
And the problem with Wish and Elemental too, and OG, let me know what you think, but I think that those are more abstract concepts that really didn't connect the same way that more mainstream animated films like Moana, for example, or Frozen connect. They're very easily, like, you can describe the plot of the film very easily. If you were to come up to somebody and say, hey, describe in less than 10 seconds what's the plot of Wish, they'd probably have a little bit more of an issue doing that. Same thing with Elemental.
Right.
So those abstract experimental animations, I mean, those have to have, like, there has to be some kind of like an SOP within Disney Animation Studios that says, hey, look, $75 million, like, that's all you're getting. This is an experimental film. We can't explain in less than 10 seconds. So
and that's really the issue, I think, with Pete Docter, is I think he's brilliant, but he is experimental film kind of guy.
Right.
That's what he does. And now you're running the studio with these $200 million budgets.
Right.
And then you're putting those experimental films out there. It's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, it's tough.
Teo Boy here says, did you also see the CNBC article with the executives making predictions? And one of them predicted Dana Walden being the heir apparent. I know it's CNBC, but it's interesting read. Yeah, no, I've been saying for a long time, Dana Walden, she's definitely top 2 or 3 on Bob Iger's list. She's got chops. She's done a lot of good things over at Fox when she came over. She continued that success over at Disney. I know, and she's also on the President Biden's export board or something. So she's got even political chops, which makes a difference when you're a Disney CEO. Running Disney is like running a small country. You know, you deal with other governments all the time, whether you're looking for a new place for a new theme park, whether you're dealing with, a DeSantis, whatever. So that political experience that she has with Biden is a huge feather in her cap, So she's definitely on the short list. But I do think that Kevin Meyer's also on that list, and Tom Staggs. But what are your thoughts?
I think the only thing with Dana Walden that may hurt her in the long run was just her whole notion of being on team Kathleen Kennedy.
Right.
That's the only thing that I think is more apparent that may kind of have that hesitation of thinking that if this is going to be someone that's going to run the whole company, to make a decision on keeping someone that's kind of overstayed their welcome, so to speak, to an entity that they essentially own. You have to kind of look at that and say, what are other choice decisions that she would make as CEO that might hinder the company in that manner?
Yeah. She also said that she also made that statement a couple of years ago too. So her perspective on that has probably and most likely has already changed. But Dana Walden, actually check out a friend of the channel, Jay Sure. He actually made a Twitter post not too long ago where he criticizes the execs predictions and why he thinks that Dana Walden is most likely not going to be selected. But I would check out Jay Sure Twitter. Check him out. He's got some interesting thoughts on that. I think that Dana Walden be the first female. Hopefully they don't make her the CEO. Just for female's sake. Like I don't think that anybody should. It should be a meritocracy. Like I'm 100%. Yeah. Hey, pick the right person for the right job, not based off their skin color, their race, their creed, their religion. Right? I don't believe in any of that. But being that she is a female, she could introduce a really unique perspective. Again, I don't know, right? So it's possible.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know. I think Tom Staggs is more qualified, though.
Me too.
I would prefer Tom as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Kiki and Luca, what do you think Warner Brothers should do with the future of DC movies? Why did Warner Brothers put James Gunn in charge? The only successful thing he did was Guardians. See, it's tough, man. I mean, Gunn, a lot of people like his movies, though. They do. The Guardians movies, the Peacemaker show that was on, I believe it was Max, got phenomenal reviews. That was James Gunn as well. It's hard to say what they should do for the future because we haven't seen anything from Gunn yet. Let's wait. Let's put a pin in this and come back to it when Superman comes out, and let's see how that does critically and financially. And then we can kind of gauge it more. But to be fair to James Gunn, he hasn't really released anything in the DC world yet. So it's kind of unfair to be like, well, what is he, what I'm saying? So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Slimer?
No, I agree with you. We haven't seen what he's able to do. Didn't he do Suicide Squad?
He did, yeah.
Yeah. And so he has dabbled into DC. He just hasn't officially played with any of the major characters: Batman, Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman, etc. Do I think that Warner Brothers made the right decision by choosing James Gunn? I don't know, man. It depends on how heavily they meddle in James Gunn's ideas, because that was the problem they had with Zack Snyder. Had the executives and the C-suite not meddled with Zack Snyder's vision for where he wanted to take these movies, the DC universe would be on a completely different trajectory. And we know this because when you look at Batman versus Superman Ultimate Cut versus the original, the
Right.
additional 30 minutes makes it a much more cohesive story. It's like a whole letter grade better. And then we watch Zack Snyder's Justice League versus the bullshit movie that we got in the theaters. I mean, it's like a night and day difference. So whether James or Gunn is the right person for the job or not, I think really depends on how much Warner Brothers keeps their hands out of the cookie jar when it comes to what it is he wants to do, his vision, and his ability to implement it without as much, executive input as possible. Now, given the Suicide Squad movie, I think that they are pretty hands off because that movie was pretty noir. I mean, it was pretty like retro and it was unique. It had its own look and feel, and you could tell that it wasn't sanitized by C-suite executives. So we'll see. I mean, Superman Legacy, how are Henry Cavill fans going to be able to get off of the Henry Cavill train and jump onto a new Superman within the next 2 years? I don't know. I'm a big Henry Cavill fan, so like for me, it's difficult to go, all right, here we go with another Superman, because we've been through so many within the last couple of years. So I mean, I don't think you guys are big DC fans, but like, how do you guys feel about that? Because I was on board with DC, and then they just kind of shit the bed,
That's what made me lose interest, is because they kept on making so many different variations of these characters in a short amount of time, as you had mentioned,
Right,
Slimer. It's just
exactly.
like it overstepped it for me, and it's just like, why put in so much time and interest in this character that this specific actor is portraying when in
Right.
just 2 years they're going to get somebody to replace the
Yeah.
actor
Exactly.
with the same character. And also
Exactly.
to your notion, Slimer, speaking also of a friend of the channel, Jay Shearer, if you all go back and watch me and OG's interview with Jay about his short film, No Vacancy, great recording, by the way, and definitely give some love out to Jay Shearer, because he worked really hard on that short film, and I can't wait to actually see it in its entirety. But in the conversation, Jay dabbles into the production process of even just making a short film. So I could imagine what doing a full-length feature film is, where the director only has so much say so to speak, on a
Right.
film that he is basically creating. Once it gets
Right.
off to the editor and the producers and everything, and they start chopping away at those film pieces, it's like by the time you get that final finished product up on screen, the director can look at it and say, what the hell, this isn't the movie I intended it to
Right.
be.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Cliffix. WB is not in a bankruptcy situation whatsoever. It's literally can't, because it's paying its debt off fast. Bankruptcy is for companies that can't pay debt off. Yeah. And what he's referring to, there was a study by a financial firm that kind of listed the bankruptcy odds for all the various studios. And I think Disney was like less than 1%. Comcast was actually even a little higher. I think it was less than 3%. But Warner Brothers was like pushing 60%. So that's what he's talking about. Now, look, I'm not a financial expert by any means, but this study was released, and for whatever reason, Warner Brothers didn't fare too well. Now, does that mean they're gonna file bankruptcy? No, it doesn't mean that they're gonna for sure. These are just the odds in the next 2 years, I believe it was. So who knows? But we'll see. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, I think it's unlikely to, Cliffix, to be honest with you. But again, these are just the odds, and whatever financial firm did this analysis felt like Warner Brothers, just wasn't there. What have you? Did you see this? Did you see this report? This study, Slimer?
I saw it, but I didn't look at it in detail. And
Same here.
I don't know what the qualifiers were. I don't know what outside sources are using to come up with this percentage. I don't know. I don't know the validity of it from a statistical perspective. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, any thoughts, George, on this? Did you see that study that it was
The same
like-
as Slimer. I did see it. I did hear about it, but I didn't really get into the analytical side of it, of really dissecting everything on it.
Yeah. Kaylee here says, if you could have any Disney animal as your pet, who would it be? Okay, Kaylee, here's the thing, right? This is funny. Like Aladdin, I used to kind of be an Aladdin. I used to kind of be an Aladdin hater, right? Because this guy had everything, dude. This guy had a genie, he had a flying carpet, he had a hot girlfriend, and he had Abu the monkey, right? And he had everything. This dude had literally everything. So it was like, come on, Aladdin. Like, I would any Disney pet, I would say Abu the monkey.
That's a good one.
I think I would love. Yeah, that's my guy. That's my guy. What about you, George?
All right, what are you thinking about? I'm going to go.
You think about you, go Slimer.
Pluto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. What about you, George?
Okay, so for me, I'd have to go, and I'd probably have to go with Chip and Dale.
Oh, that's
I don't
interesting.
know. I think
Pets,
they're just I just think I don't know. There's just something about them. They're just like so mischievous and everything. I'd probably regret that decision after letting them roam in the house, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of have to go with Chip and Dale.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's pretty nuts, man. Pretty nuts. I'm just kidding. BJ Vincent, with Universal Studios announcing plans for a theme park in the UK, what does this mean for Disney Paris? And what impact, if any, will it have on Disney Paris? Now, Slimer, you said before before we went live, you were saying you watched friend of the channel DSNY. He did a video on this, right?
Yeah, so BJ Vincent, good question. Go check out Jack over at DSNY Newscast because he just dropped a video on this. But he believes, and I agree with him, that Disney is going to have to be more selective about what IP or projects in general they implement over at Disney Paris moving forward, because Universal Studios entering into the Europe arena is actually pretty impactful. That's a big deal because now people that are that live in Europe that are interested in going into Universal Studios or Orlando or California for that matter, but usually they travel over to Florida because it's a lot closer. Now they're going to look at Universal Studios in the United Kingdom as a viable option to save money on travel, and then they're going to inject that money they would have injected over in Florida into the United Kingdom. So what kind of people go to Universal Studios? Well, usually these are your thrill seekers, and these are your people that are into big budget movies like Jurassic World, Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and Nintendo. We know those are the three biggest IPs that Universal Studios has. So are those people the same kind of people that go to Disneyland? Can they tap into that market, right? Universal feels like there's a market there, and that Disneyland Paris doesn't have a monopoly on these people. And that's primarily because the United Kingdom is also comprised of other amusement parks, which are primarily built off of thrill rides. So, yeah, I think this is a big deal. I think you're going to see more thrill rides over at Disneyland Paris moving forward, to try to take away those or to try to prevent Universal Studios from tapping into and stealing permanently those people from the Disney parks.
Here's the thing, and I'm going to play devil's advocate. I think it's a good thing that Universal, like at least Universal is actually making moves, right? Like we get Daddy Josh on stage who doesn't commit to anything. So I will give Universal credit for that. But when you start building, look, they're building the Texas park, the Kiddie Park in Texas. They're building Epic Universe, and they're building the Vegas Halloween Horror Night thing, and they're building this UK thing, right? So you're talking about a lot of stuff. Now, that's a lot of risk. If one of these things, if this UK park is a flop or whatever, that's a huge amount of risk there. You know, remember we had a huge issue at Disney when at the time it was called Euro Disney, but it changed its name to Disneyland Paris. When that park premiered, when that park opened, it didn't do well. And it threw Disney as a company kind of into a tailspin a little bit. I know, George, you remember that. Yes. It was not a good time for the company after that. So that's the risk I think Universal's taking. They're very bullish on these parks, which is good as a fan. As a company, though, it's all chips in. And if any of these things flop,
I'm going to push.
you.
I'm going to push back on that though, because that was over 30 years ago and the data was completely different. The data was very anemic compared to how it is now. We have a lot more data. We have no more theme parks in that area. So I think Universal has higher predictability to their level of success moving forward into this decade versus when they tried to establish Euro Disney, over 30 years ago.
That's fair. Absolutely. George, any thoughts on this?
It's quite interesting because I see both of your points. They're both very valid, and I think it's where, yeah, in a way, Universal has to just be careful of over cannibalizing how much they're doing at once, and really
Right.
knowing what they're getting into for each sector of where they're putting these parks. On the other hand, I do see that Disneyland Paris can't now rely on their laurels to just say, oh yeah, we could just do this because, we're separate from everything else. We really don't have too big of a competition. But yeah, I really do think that Disneyland Paris, once Universal, kind of has a park in the UK, they now have a firm competition. So now they do have to be careful because they could essentially end up losing some guests. But at the same time, to your point, OG, and even Slimer had mentioned it, that if people now start going to Universal in the UK that are from there and they start losing business in Orlando, well, then there goes all the money that they put into Epic Universe for all those international travelers.
Right.
So could they be hurting themselves in that sense?
From what I understand, yeah, we have friend of the channel, Elizabeth Gates, who's a big Universal fan, was talking about that. That's one of her concerns, is that I guess a lot of tourists go to Orlando from this area, the UK, and they go to Universal. So when you build a park in their backyard, are you cannibalizing your domestic parks? Yet to be seen. But again, these are all big question marks. So we'll kind of have to wait and see how that all kind of shakes out. But interesting question, Teo Boy. I mean, whose question was that?
Teo Boy? Or is
no,
was
that was somebody,
no, that's nice.
That was oh, now I lost it. It was BJ Vincent. BJ Vincent. Teo Boy here says, give me 1 second, we go back up. Okay. Teo Boy here says, I have to say, been a follower of OG on X for a bit and started watching these live streams recently, and I really enjoy them so much. Nice community we have here. Well, thank you so much, Teo Boy. Yeah, we love our community. Everyone is amazing. We get amazing, we really kind of like forged some amazing friendships here, and it's been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And Teo Boy, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere, Teo Boy. We're going to continue to do this. We're going to continue to do these live streams and these videos and talking nerdy stuff with you guys. We love doing it. We really, really do.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so welcome. And yeah, definitely keep an eye out for more content, more videos coming from the channel, and especially more lives. We definitely got into the lives a lot more because I think we kind of find our niche with it. So we're gonna,
it's fun.
As Walt says, we're just gonna keep moving forward.
We're gonna keep moving forward. Michael Ebba here says, hey, Orange Crew. Just want to stop by and say hi real quick. Hope everyone is doing fantastic. My question, has anyone played Connect Disneyland? Awesome concept. Have you?
Yes.
Have you played? Okay.
It's the one game I actually did play.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, Michael, actually, yeah, great question. This game was very unique for me because this is actually the game that encouraged me to get the Xbox. At the time, they incorporated it within the system, but you needed to buy the Xbox Connect because it was a type of game that had a lot of like the motion that you had to maneuver the characters like with your body, with hand gestures and what have you. But now you could just play it with a regular game controller. But I loved how they tackled a video game like this with Disneyland and the attractions, because essentially it wasn't like you going on the actual ride itself, but it was an interpretation of the ride with these like mini games with pirates and the Haunted Mansion and the Nemo Submarine Voyage and even Splash Mountain. That's where you could still go back and kind of relive your Splash Mountain memories through the Disneyland adventures. The only thing that it didn't have at the time, because Disney did not own Lucasfilm, they did not incorporate Star Tours or Indiana Jones into the game,
Interesting.
which is kind of a bummer because I would love to see it now that they own the rights.
Right.
And I kind of wish that they still had this game going, but if it was more like of a live kind of game, sort of like with Fortnite and those kind of games where you can kind of interact with people and you can
Right.
kind of, trade stuff and go on rides together or what have you. And also have the game where it constantly changes as the parks update. So as new things come to the park, they could add that to the game. I think that would be so cool. That'd be dope as shit.
Yeah. Have you played that Slimer, that Disneyland Connect?
Nah, I know what he's talking about, but I haven't played it. Is it George? It sounds pretty good. OG, have you played it?
I have not played it. So we're going off of you, George.
Yep.
You know,
It's really cool.
You can vouch for it like an Italian mobster. You can vouch, man.
I'll make them an offer they can't refuse.
There you go. There you go. Exactly. And Maybe is in the house. Maybe says here, I need the monorail to go to Zootopia, so I feel like I'm in the movie embarking on my new adventure. That would be awesome. That would be absolutely awesome.
Yes. And that's why I figured that if it was going to come to Animal Kingdom, that's why I thought the Rafiki's Planet Watch was on the chopping block for that, because they could have easily turned the Wildlife Express train into the traveling from the actual Animal Kingdom park into Zootopia itself.
It's a good point.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Kiki and Luca here says, regarding Imagineer hearsay, do you think an Imagineer would violate an NDA and risk their job and career to shit on the Tiana ride? And that's the thing too. Yeah, I don't know. And I'm not going to say like, the source is wrong or this, that, and the other, or, but I just, there's a lot of question marks. What do you think, Slimer? Would they do that? Or, I mean, I don't know. What's your feeling on it?
I don't think there's Kiki and Luca. I don't think there's a historical precedence of this actually occurring. So I'm going to say the probability of somebody violating an NDA to risk their job and career is going to be probably closer to 0 than 100%.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, George? In terms of, I think they're referring to the rumor about Bob Iger saying this is boring,
right.
and it was from an Imagineer.
Right. Again, maybe even the quote from the Imagineer was maybe kind of misinterpreted. As you had mentioned, OG, it's just like the game Telephone. One person says one thing, it gets passed along to this person, and it's like it could have just been lost in translation all around, and it may not have just stopped with Iger's quote if he actually put it in the context of how people were perceiving it.
Well, not only that, but I don't think repeating somebody's opinion about a ride violates any NDAs, because all you're doing is you're just
true.
You're just saying what somebody's opinion was of a ride. You're not actually saying something.
But I mean,
about
as far as even just understanding where it may not have even been the Imagineer's understanding of what he heard Iger. It could have been an Imagineer that told an Imagineer that told an Imagineer that told Mickey Views. So it could have...
Inception.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. There's just too many question marks. And look, Mickey Views is solid. I mean, he's getting information, he's reporting on it, and that's cool, but we just don't know. There's just not enough information. And even the quote itself, "This is boring," there's zero context there.
Yeah.
What's this Imagineer referring to? The whole ride? A part of the ride? It could be anything. It could be absolutely anything. It could be a paint scheme on a rock, for all we know. It doesn't. Yep. It just means nothing without more context. So yeah, unfortunately. Teo Boy here says, any plans to do a foreign Disney park or maybe the cruise line in 2024? George, any plans to do maybe a foreign Disney park or the cruise line in 2024?
Yeah, it's funny actually, Teo Boy, you brought that up because actually speaking to both of those, because I have been thinking of possibly trying to shoot for Tokyo Disneyland in 2024 around the time when Fantasy Springs opens, but a little bit before they close down Tomorrowland and doing that whole overhaul. So I'm trying to get maybe at the very beginning of summer, because I believe Fantasy Springs opens June 6th of 2024. So again, it's not fully set in stone. I'm also talking to this guy over here, and I actually was talking to this guy down here about it as well. So, so yeah, we're just trying to flesh some things out, see if it can happen. A Disney cruise. I'm always up for a Disney cruise. I actually I told this guy over here. I said I booked because right now Disney Cruise Line is doing an offer, 50% off of your down deposit for select cruises. So I ended up texting OG. It's like, I booked a cruise on the Magic in 2025. You game? And he's like, I'm all for it. Let's do it. So I was like, I already put the deposit on. So
let's do it.
We're going. So so I don't know as far as in 2024, there's a possibility, but definitely in 2025, we're going back on the Disney Cruise Line on the Disney Magic.
Absolutely.
And that's also for both islands, Castaway Key and Lookout Key, as part of Lighthouse Point, the new.
So then I can get a really good tan and come back like Enrique Iglesias again.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. There we go. Slimer, any plans for Disney parks, anything like that on the horizon, or?
Nah, I have too many home expenses, man. I gotta get a new roof. I got to do some plumbing. I got some electrical work that needs to be done. So no foreign Disney plans for me. I mean, if I go anywhere this year, 2024, maybe I can squeeze in a trip to Disneyland and come visit you out. But what's this from? Hey, Theme Park Casual, now Slimer piling on me. OG will keep calling you up.
Yeah, I think what they're talking about is when we were talking about the fans nitpicking. I think he's joking that like, oh man, I feel seen, that kind of thing.
Well, you know what's funny about Theme Park Casual? It's funny because during that whole conversation, I almost said Theme Park Casual. I almost said, if you want to see how to really experience Disney, just go check out Theme Park Casual's page, because even though he nitpicks, like 80% of the time he's really enjoying the parks. I would say even 90% of the time. Like he doesn't embellish in the nitpicking at all. He might be like offer some commentary on it, but most of the time he's out there doing the parks, living the parks, being in the parks. And then when you watch his vlogs, he like rarely ever complains, man. He's usually having a really good time. So like,
well, he's a normal complainer. You know, he does like I mean, like not a complainer, but I mean, like when there's something to complain about, he does it in a normal fashion, not like a lot of these fash holes out there that just complain about like every little nitpicking thing.
Right. No, he's usually out there really enjoying the park. So, you know, if you haven't checked out Theme Park Casual, go check him out. He's a great channel, friend of the channel. He's always in the parks and yeah.
And really quick, Slimer, to your to what you were saying about before about visiting like the other parks or anything. And I know you have expenses you have to deal with, but I mean, that could always happen, man. Go on these elaborate adventures, come back and do what my ancestors did back in Sicily. Just go pick a nice bridge to go under. You'll be fine.
Exactly, man. Come on.
Forget about it.
You know? Come on. Well, and hey, look, Slimer, you know, do you need both kidneys? Come on. Really? Come on, man. Come on.
You got a point.
Yeah. But to kind of touch upon what Casual was talking about, look, it's okay to be critical. I mean, we're not trying to say you can't be critical. If something's broken, it's okay to say, oh man, Disney shouldn't, you know, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this kind of like toxic, sort of like this obsessed. It's this very ugly kind of thing we see on social media. Look, if we go to Disney and somebody doesn't look right, you're like, man, that's a bad show. That's fine, dude. There's nothing wrong with that, you know? But it's this perpetual, like, everything they do sucks. It's the worst thing ever. It's, oh my God, Big Mouth's bad. That's the stuff that I think we're talking about. And that's not miles and miles and miles away.
Oh, gee, you're gonna have to make with a comic book guy from The Simpsons. You're gonna have to have him say worst comic book ever. You're just gonna have to put him in your StreamYard, buddy, because that's
definitely. And I can dub out comic book and I can voice in theme park.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
Hey, The Simpsons, like 9 out of 10, they pretty much predict everything. So there's probably an episode out there of the over 500 episodes they have where he's saying worst theme park ever.
Oh, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And the one and only Mr. Seymour Duck is in the house. Mr. Seymour Duck. If WB and Paramount merges, what do you call the new company? Man, that's interesting. I've seen some names on
Mount
Twitter.
My Warner.
What is
Mount My Warner?
Oh, geez, George. Of course you would. Of course you would. I don't know what you would call it. See, this is the thing. Hopefully Zaslav is not in charge of that, because I hated when he went from HBO Max to Max.
If Zaslav was, that's probably the name he'd go for.
Yeah, but they could do like I don't even know, man, because like Warner Brothers is a really strong brand. You have to incorporate Warner in there somewhere. You know, like Warner Mount or like Warner. I don't know. What would you guys do?
I think it depends on who owns the majority share. I mean,
right.
So they can do, so like, let's say Paramount owns majority share in this case, then you can call it the Paramount company. And then you can have the Warner Brothers studio division, the Discovery studio division, as as like, studios underneath the Paramount umbrella. If it was the other way around, you can have, the Warner Brothers Discovery company and then Paramount Studios underneath it. So there you go, Mr. Seymour.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. I like that idea of
or you could do the opposite. Like if Paramount was the higher end, you can do you could do Warner Brothers inspired by.
There you go. Inspired by Paramount. That's great, George. That's absolutely great. We love that. I think Disney's on board with that. They approve. Imagineering definitely is. Leo CH, part 1 of 2. I never a ride people want it to. Wait, hold on. Never a ride people want to fail big like Tiana Bayou Adventure. But it got me thinking of the timing of that ride announcement right near the George Floyd protest back in 2020. Makes me think that if the announcement timing made this ride become a get jumbled by that stupid culture war issue, or if it's just going to be an issue no matter what. This is the thing. I think that the timing makes a difference. The reason behind, like, this is the thing. When you did it the summer of 2020 with the George Floyd stuff and all that, like the culture stuff was really coming to a head right then and there, right? Yeah, the timing does matter because it's a reaction to that. It kind of threw it into the culture war and all that stuff. So it does make a big difference. But I don't know. At the end of the day, though, I think it probably would have been, at least to some degree, an issue because you are replacing Splash Mountain and people are going to be mad. But what do you think, Slimer? What are your thoughts on this, brother?
I had no idea that the announcement was made near the anniversary of the George Floyd protest. So I guess I'm going to have to look at that, the correlation between the announcement and the anniversary of the George Floyd protest back in 2020. So I don't have an opinion on that right now, Leo CH. I apologize. But if you're in the next live chat, I'll just remind me and I'll try to answer that question for you.
Yeah. It definitely, look, it's definitely part of the culture war. But the thing that annoys me with the Tiana Bayou Adventure conversation, though, is because, like I said in the show yesterday to George, if you're against woke, right? It's fine. If you're against it, that's fine. That's your thing. Cool. The problem is that you almost have to have this thing fail, because if it doesn't fail, from your side of the argument, you're encouraging Disney to do more woke. So even if the ride is really good, it still has to fail though. So it moves along your end of the culture war. That's what's frustrating to me, because I feel like we're not judging this thing based on the product itself. And we're judging it based on, well, we need to win the culture war. So, this thing has to go down. That's the kind of the mentality I'm seeing out there. And that's what's frustrating. Now, it's okay to not like it though. If you ride it, you don't like it, that's fine. But the culture war, when you lead with the culture war over everything else, that's where I have a problem with it. Because then you're not judging the ride based on the ride. You're judging it because, well, it's woke, so therefore it has to come down. It has to fail.
And you had mentioned, OG, that is also similarly the case with what is transpiring with opinions being formulated about movies before actually seeing the movie and judging the movie on its own merits.
Exactly. Well said, Slimer. Mr. BJ Vincent says, "Nah, Slimer, it never affects my happiness. To be honest, as you stated, these are first world issues. I just find it amusing seeing how some people continually scream Disney ruined my childhood, then have mental breakdowns on YouTube, but no effect on me." Yeah, I don't know. That was kind of directed at you, Slimer. What are your thoughts on that, brother? I think he's talking about like the perpetual kind of complaining.
Right. Yeah. No. Hey, that's great, BJ. I'm glad that this doesn't affect your happiness. It shouldn't affect your happiness. When something that was created to enhance your happiness is actually detrimental to it, at that point, you should probably seek counseling. The Disney company, the Disney product, Disney World, Disneyland was created to enhance your life. And if you're taking something and focusing on it and you're judging it under a pessimistic microscope to the point that you feel the urge to complain about it incessantly online, then that thing the intended purpose no longer serves you in the way that it was intended to be. So for those people, I'd say, get a life. Or
just move on. Like that's the thing too. Like if I don't like something, or if it's no longer for me,
right,
I move on, dude. Like, okay, look, Disney is gone in a direction, and I'm not feeling the movies. I'm not really into the theme parks anymore. It's just not the same Disney that I fell in love with 20 years ago. You move on then. You vote with your wallet and you move on. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you don't like anything they're doing and you're still going constantly but you're just out there to complain on social media, that gets a little annoying.
You have a bigger agenda than what you lead on to.
Yeah, it just gets annoying. It gets pretty annoying. Yep. Bad Thought Studio says here, George, let's go speed dating on a Disney cruise. Are you down, George?
I'm down, man. I'm all for it. I love myself a good Disney cruise, and which is actually funny was because I was considering on dipping into speed dating also too, just for the fun of it. Not even leading to anything, but try something different I never done before. I've never done speed dating before, so I thought, if I ever was to, might as well.
Wait, you never did though? You ultimately decided not to?
I never done it, but I mean it's still in my head to possibly try it.
So it's still on the table, is what you're saying, Drew.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Tones from Bad Thoughts Podcast said he's down for it. So there you go, man.
All right, Tones. Whenever you're ready, brother.
Maybe here says your competition is rough when Spider-Man himself is on the cruise. And
well, maybe I just have to say this. Yes, that is very, very well true. That is very well true. I can't compete with Spider-Man, but let me tell you something. When this Italiano unbuttons his shirt down a little bit and throws on these, there's no resisting.
There's no resisting. Exactly. We got Top Gun Italiano over here. BJ Vincent, Slimer, what did you think of Star Trek Lower Deck and Star Trek Strange New Worlds crossover episode? I actually thought it would be horrible, but was happily proven wrong. I think you mentioned Lower Decks earlier, right, Slimer?
Yeah. So BJ Vincent's actually a Star Wars fan, and so Shows of Wishes. There was actually it might have been a live video that you guys were doing, and we just went into our own Star Trek conversation in the chat. But that was a really good episode. I like that the actors that that do the voices for the show were actually in the show. I thought it was great. It was cute. I actually enjoy Strange New Worlds. I think it's one of the better Star Trek shows. I know there's a lot of people that don't enjoy it. But teach their own. I think that Star Trek comes in different forms and shapes and sizes, and a lot of people have this conception that there's a lot of Star Trek purists, just like there are Star Wars purists, that believe that Roddenberry's conceptualization of Star Trek is the only version of Star Trek. I don't necessarily agree with that. I enjoy all Star Trek, so.
Nice.
But yeah,
what a nerd.
I enjoy
what
it.
A nerd.
I know what a fucking nerd, dude. You know what's funny is I actually probably prefer Star Trek over Star Wars. So
Oh man.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? That's man. You think you know a guy, right?
Yeah, I know.
You
Shit.
I love
Mr.
Star Wars, but anyways.
No, I feel you. I feel you. Mr. Seymour Duck.
You're wrong, but I mean, I understand.
Mr. Seymour Duck here says Slimer, OG, and George as well. If the lower budgets don't work, what do you think will be the next step? Trolls band together was $100 million, but it was $100 million and didn't even cross $200 million each. What are your thoughts on that, Slimer?
They have to get the budget together. I mean, they don't have an alternative.
Right.
I mean, what is the alternative? I mean, if they were to keep the high budget and then drop it direct to streaming, which has lower return on investment, your ROI is a fraction of what it is in the movie theater. I mean, for them to recoup the amount of costs that they would lose dropping it to streaming as opposed to releasing it in, exclusively in the theaters. And somebody had said into Twitter today, when is it? I was watching Yes Have Some, which is a Ghostbusters podcast. And somebody has said, when are the movie
There's a
theaters
fucking
gonna stop?
surprise.
Yeah. Somebody said, when are they going to stop saying exclusively in cinemas in the bottom of posters? Well, I'll tell you, when people start going back to the movie theaters again, because the reason they say exclusively in theaters is because nobody's going to the movie theaters to go see these movies.
Well, and that's the thing too, Slimer. I'm sorry to cut you off, but
No, you're good.
The theaters can lower their budgets to adjust their financials. But what are the theaters going to do?
Right.
What are the theaters going to do? How are they going to, when studios stop putting as many films in theaters in general and things like that? Go ahead, Slimer.
They're going to outsource to Japan. They're going to outsource to China. They're going to outsource to different studios around the world. You might start seeing Bollywood movies in the theaters if that's what's going to make them money. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I mean, you said it. I think you guys had mentioned it at one point. When what was it? You have a Godzilla and then the Japanese animated movie. They're in the theaters right now that are blowing everything away. Godzilla is the highest rated movie in IMDb.com. They came out in 2023. They doubled the amount of theaters it was being shown in after the first week of showing. So if the theaters have to look outside of Hollywood, then they're going to look outside of Hollywood. But if Hollywood doesn't get their their production budgets in line, then dropping it directly to streaming is not going to help them because they're going to be making a third of what they would make per family in the theaters. I mean, what are you going to do? Drop it for $20 when you're going to make $90 on that movie in the theaters?
I know.
You know
And
what I mean?
a lot of people are pointing to the Taylor Swift thing, which did fantastic. I mean, Taylor Swift is a movement at this point, right?
Yeah.
But that's not sustainable for movie theaters. That's lightning in a bottle, Taylor Swift. I mean, yeah, okay, maybe next summer you do the Born Pink tour of Blackpink or something, right? But you can't. These groups, the theaters can't live on that.
Right. You can't rely on groupies to fund an entire movie theater operation because that's who's going to see these movies. It's just groupies.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And the Taylor Swift movie, by the way, made all its money in the first week. Yeah. After that, it dived. It nosedived.
Well, and if they do Blackpink, the first $100 million that movie makes would just be OG rebuying the tickets over and over again.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There we go. Maybe here says I've never seen Back to the Future. It was my
maybe.
Damn.
Maybe.
You got to watch Back to the Future.
You have to.
One of the best trilogies in cinematic history.
Yeah,
you will enjoy it. Honestly, watch all three movies.
The screenplay for Back to the Future is used in film school as a model for a perfect screenplay.
I'm telling you, I got to do the Universal Hollywood tram tour. I did it twice in the time that I was out there. Mm-hmm. And what I love about that tram tour is depending on the time of day, if something is being filmed or blocked off, you get a completely different experience. The first time was awesome. The second time I went on it, because it didn't happen the first time, they actually unblocked the road that took you to the actual set of Back to the Future. Wow. I got to see the clock tower. Hill Valley. Yeah. I got to see the clock tower. I got to see everything. And I tell you, the hairs on my arm all stood up in unison. And trust me, I'm an Italian. I'm a hairy guy. So that's a lot of hair to be standing up. But it was just a surreal moment to actually see that iconic set piece.
Right.
and it
Back-
was great.
Back to the Future in the 1980s was probably about as big as Infinity War was a couple years ago. It was huge. Do you remember that, OG?
Oh, dude, I remember. I remember seeing Back to the Future 2 in theaters with my friend Dominic at the time.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
And
That's how old we are.
Yeah, exactly. We're old fogies over here. But I remember walking out of that theater wanting a hoverboard so fucking bad, dude. It was like that was the thing.
Yeah.
But Back to the Future, it's a great franchise. Maybe you have to watch it. We should, you know what? We should do a Back to the Future watch party.
Yeah, let's do
Let's
it.
do it. Let's do
That'd
it.
be awesome. That'd be awesome. Mr. Seymour Duck says here, have they even updated the Simpsons attraction since Disney bought Fox? I wouldn't mind the Simpsons at Disney parks. I don't think I haven't been on it in a long time.
No, they didn't. It's the same boring ass attraction that it opened with. Unfortunately, I hate to say that because I am a huge Simpsons fan, but those lands don't do the Simpsons justice whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately. Kaylee here says taking Nickelodeon out of Universal was a bad move. Yeah.
That was a dark day when I found that out. I was about to play taps when they started kind of like dismantling the Nickelodeon studios in Orlando, because I mean I grew up with that. I mean I grew up with all that, Keenan and Kel, the Double Dare game show, Figure It Out, Guts, Legends of the Hidden Temple. I mean, come on, like
I used to love Legends of the Hidden Temple. That was a dope show. I used to watch what else? You can't do that on television.
Yeah, that's an old one.
What was that? What Would You Do? Did you ever see What Would You Do?
I was talking about What Would You Do? There's a ton of great stuff. Old school Nickelodeon is like, we should do a whole show on old school Nickelodeon.
I was actually just going to bring that up, OG, because there was a lot of talk of Nickelodeon, even in the chat. I would love to just like dive into just a whole show, just do nothing but green and orange. Let's do it, Nickelodeon.
Let's do it. Green and orange. Maybe here says, I would die to see the Nickelodeon slime in real life. That would be cool.
Yes.
I have.
Yes.
I would let them slime me. I'd stand there and let them pour that on.
Really quick, I know you're all the way up at the top. Can you come just really quick, because we were on the subject, you come all the way down to Mr. Seymour Duck. He asked me a question really quick because it's just on the topic.
Yeah, I got you.
Do you love orange soda, George? Well, in Lights of Kel Mitchell, I do. Ooh.
Oh, George.
I just had to do that. That was for you, Seymour.
There you go. Leo here says, part 1 of 1. Did you ever do something you did in the past that you think is stupid of me to do it? Okay, I think he's asking, have you ever done anything stupid in the past that you like basically regret? Slimer, you seem pretty like you have something on your mind. What did you do in the past, man?
No comment.
No.
My past is riddled with failures, and I'm not going to announce them to the world. So
Smart man. Are you George? Are you going to plead the fifth? Or you're gonna?
Okay, hold on. Let me just get my list here. Wait, give me 1 second. You know, I don't.
George is like, well, here, let's see.
Yeah, let me. Okay, so I'll say this. I feel like that you can't have success without failure.
Right.
And I feel like that there are certain times that you may in life go down a wrong path or make a decision that you may regret, but it's, in the words of Rafiki, it's like you could either run away from it or learn from it, you know?
Yeah.
So I think, but no, I think I'm still going to plead the fifth on specifics, you know, of certain things that I, you know, may regret. Ex-wife. But anyway, no, just joking, folks. But no, as I said, it's all a learning process. We're all humans, you know. We all kind of have our trials and tribulations. But no, I think honestly, I can't really say at certain things that I've done that I regret, because if I did, then I learn from it and I become a better person.
No, absolutely. It's all part of, you know, that growth, you know, George, you know, finding that inner George and becoming that better man, you know?
Absolutely. And that's how I became the Disney Italiano from it.
There we go, buddy. There you go. And hey, and just know, if there's any haters out there, George haters out there, he's got a message for you.
To everyone who watches my life and gossips about it, don't give up. Season 2 is about to come out.
George has season 2 coming out. So, Mr. Seymour. Fantastic.
I love that drop. That's
dude,
my new
awesome.
favorite drop.
One more time.
To everyone who watches my life and gossips about it, don't give up. Season 2 is about to come out.
Yes.
There we go.
That's
a banger.
awesome.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Mr. Seymour Duck with the $5 donation. Thank you so much, Seymour. We love you, brother. We got to get Seymour back on. We're planning on doing a big Nintendo video with Seymour coming up. That's gonna be a lot of fun. So we gotta arrange that, sir. But he says here for the orange soda. So George,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Seymour Duck.
That's your orange soda money. Oh shit! I said money. One sec. Oh, here we go. You can tell towards the end of the streams, I start.
Of course, yeah. And that $5 actually that could be put towards my orange soda. I'll get with my superstar Carl's Jr. meal. So
There you go. Absolutely. Bad Thought Studio. A Scarlet Witch film is reportedly in development at Marvel Studios. The film will tie together the storyline that started in WandaVision. What do y'all think? I said earlier on in the show when I was asked by CJ Stryker, what's your favorite Marvel character? Scarlet Witch is one of them. I absolutely love her character. Elizabeth Olsen, I think, crushed it in that role. Yeah, I didn't love some of the creative decisions made with her character here and there, but for the most part, I am a fan, and I'm a fan of Elizabeth, so I'm down for it, man. As long as it's really good, I'm up for it. What are your thoughts on that, George? Would you be up for this?
yeah, I think as long as they don't interpret her character of how they kind of utilized her in Doctor Strange 2. That was a little bit cringy for me. I mean, I could see where they were kind of going with it, but I don't know. I wasn't a fan of it. I do love how WandaVision kind of started out. And then as it progressed on, it kind of started to kind of dip down for me. But as far as her character itself, her backstory and her portrayal by Elizabeth Olsen, I think is phenomenal. I agree with you, OG. I feel like if they come up with a great script, a great movie, it's obvious that Elizabeth Olsen can definitely handle her own as the character. She's done it many times. So that's not the issue. It's more so just locking down a good script and a good director.
And Mr. Slimer, what are your thoughts? WandaVision.
Yeah, I mean, there's with the potential introduction of the X-Men coming in and taking over the main storyline for the Marvel Universe, there's certainly the possibility of them rolling her into a House of M live action. So there you go. Did you do the hearts? Or?
That was me.
I was like, you could just keep this up for the remainder of the show.
Okay, right? Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, go ahead, Summer.
But Bad Thoughts, yeah. If they do a House of M story, I think that'd be great. I think that's a really good comic book series to make a film off of. The script writes itself. Obviously they would tweak it to a movie, but personally, that's what I would want to see, and it's the most cohesive with what they've done with the characters so far.
Well said. And we got Mr. Seymour Duck, and he is referring to, I think it was Cliffix who was talking about WB not going bankrupt. We talked about that that study that was done, the analysis about how Warner Brothers had a 60% chance of going bankrupt and that whole thing. So Seymour Duck here says it's the Petrosky F score. Is used to get that 60% for Warner Brothers. Investors use it all the time to determine the strength of a company's financial position.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. Absolutely interesting. So we'll see, Now, again, this is just a probability. That doesn't mean that they are going bankrupt. That just means that it's more likely than, say, Disney. That's all. Or even Comcast. Let's see here. We got Kaylee with another banger. Right here, it says, I love that Connect game. It's funny how all the copyright stuff isn't in the game, like Roger Rabbit, Indiana Jones, and Star Tours IP.
That's right, Kaylee. I forgot about Roger Rabbit. Cartoon Spin is also not in the game. That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then she goes on to say, the character sound bits when you meet them in the game are so cute. Oh, that's adorable. That is absolutely adorable. Mr. Jonas J. Campbell from That Park Place says you guys are pretty down on Disney this stream. Hey, you know what? We keep it real, brother. I mean, if we see if what we see is not good, we're going to call it out, and if what we see is good, we will say that as well. So, yeah, I'm just keeping it real. Let's see here. Selby Pega, man, I'm so sorry, Selby. I'm going to massacre your last name. Pegararo, I believe. Paramount plus Warner equals Para Warner Media. What do you guys think about that name?
I actually like it. Para
like
Warner. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. Let me see here. Kiki and Luca. Resistance is futile. George the Italiano board. That's fantastic. That's
Love
fantastic.
it. Love it.
Absolutely. So maybe here says watch party. She's referring to the Back to the Future thing. Seriously, we should. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm down. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got Kaylee here, A Dark Day in 2005 when they got rid of Nickelodeon Studios.
Yeah.
Old school Nickelodeon was awesome. And to be able to go to Universal and watch a filming like that, I think was incredible. I don't know. Now,
I think.
Do we know?
Well, I'm sorry. What was your question?
Where does Nickelodeon film now? Do we know? Like their
I
show?
don't really know. I don't really know actually, because I mean I know they did a lot of those teen shows, Drake and Josh, iCarly, Victorious. I know that was after the fact of after the studio closed. So I don't know if they shoot those in California.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's a good question.
Yeah,
but I actually have an idea that because we were talking about doing a show with Nickelodeon, I say we just do one live show, just all Nickelodeon.
I'm down. Yeah, I'm down, dude. I'm absolutely down. Yeah. That'd be a lot of fun. Nickelodeon, the old school Nickelodeon was a fantastic IP. It'd be a lot of fun to talk about. There's a lot of stuff there. I mean, like you said, Legends of the Hidden Temple, things like that. Yeah. Come on.
So everyone in the chat, we'll do a live show of all Nickelodeon. So build up your questions.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'll discuss them on the live show.
Yeah, 100%. And the last comment is from our friend Maybe. And you know what happens when we drop money?
Brand new money, brand new hundreds, got a bunch of zeros like a bag of new Funyuns.
I'm mixing it up a little bit, you know.
Yeah, of course.
I can't have Lisa every time, so I'm mixing it up a little bit. But I want to thank everybody in the chat for joining us today. Kaylee, Maybe, Seymour Duck, Jonas J. Campbell, Selby. Who else was in the chat? We got a lot here today. Leo CH, Epic Berserker, Florentine, BJ Vincent, Bad Thoughts Podcast, Teo Boy, Kiki and Luca, Elizabeth Gates. I mean, just so many. CJ Stryker, Jason Hill. Love Low. We love all of you. Thank you so much.
Michael. Did you say Michael? Michael Ebba?
Michael Ebba. Exactly. Michael Ebba. Yeah. Everybody in chat, thank you so much for joining us today. Like George was saying earlier, we love doing these live shows. They're a lot of fun. We love just, shooting the shit with you guys, with you nerds, just talking parks, studio, whatever. So it was a really, really great time. Teo Boy here says, have a great night, everybody. Can't wait for the next stream. Absolutely. And it will be soon. It will be very soon.
And as OG actually just kind of touched upon it, in the words of oh gosh, what's her name? I forget her name. Oh God, I know her name, but the main character in Pitch Perfect. I love you, nerds. So
there we go. Absolutely. So we're gonna close out right now to my 3 hour and 16-minute crew. Thank you so much for joining with us today. Actually, this is our longest stream that we've ever done.
I'm telling you, OG, it's just going to keep getting longer and longer because I think we're throwing some banger numbers out there. So.
George, I think your beard is growing out. Since
probably.
Now,
yeah. His beard is like 2 shades darker since we started the stream. Absolutely.
I think it is actually. I'm gonna have to go back and start it all over again. Look.
Yep.
Yeah, hey, if we play it like 2 times speed or whatever, you would see it like
a Chia Pet commercial.
Yes. Hey, I'm in that movie 50 Shades Darker. So
there you go. The Italiano, man, the Italiano. But I'll start with you, Slimer. If you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, my man.
Yeah, Twitter Slimesquare84. If you enjoy Ghostbusters, you'll enjoy my page. I also post Disney stuff, but I'm primarily posting about the boys in gray. And by the way, we're gonna do a video on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire here pretty soon. Maybe more towards when the movie's about to release in March. That's March 29th. Get Jay on it. I think that'd be fantastic.
Mr. J is here.
I am going to see that in theaters. So
yeah, everybody should see the new Ghostbusters in movie theaters. That's definitely a theater movie for sure.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And before I move to you, George, I have one more
And all
thing.
these dollars got commas that come with commas behind them. And all my slammers be slamming. And all my slammers be slamming. And all my slammers be slamming. And all my slammers be slamming.
That's for you, Slimer.
All right, that's fire.
That's fire. That's fire. Like Haley said, fire. George, if you let everybody home know where they can find your sexy Italiano face. Where can they find you, buddy?
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You can find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Absolutely. There we go. There you go. You guys feel like you're at the strip club?
Yeah.
Get with the program and spend some dough, man. Anyway.
This is what happens, folks, when we're almost 3.5 hours in. So
Exactly. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching this episode of OG55 Live. We'll be doing it again very, very soon. Comment down below with all your thoughts on everything we discussed today. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye, everybody.